Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lawcast. This week, the march to WrestleMania continues as we cover, I think, one of the forgotten great WrestleManias. This was a night of just infinite possibilities for WWE. Somehow it was appropriate that on the night WrestleMania went Hollywood, WWE maybe made more stars than any individual night in their history. It's WrestleMania 21, coming out party for John Cena and Batista, but also a whole lot of other guys on this roster.
In theory, you could almost say that this is the coming out party for at least one person in every single match up and down the card, with the exception of one that we'll get to later. But literally, this is Trish's coming out party as a ring general. This is Kurt Angle elevating himself to legendary status, and those are the matches that nobody talks about. Everybody. This is Mysterio's big moment. This is Edge's big moment. This is Orton's big moment. And this is maybe the show in the history of wrestling that makes the most stars in one night. It's incredible.
Yeah, I'm struggling to think of another time you can say they just made like five guys in one night. They come out of this, it looks like they've got their next generation of stars ready to roll. It looks like this company is heading into another boom period after, a couple of years of declining popularity. And as we'll get to next week, everything goes to hell after this. And by WrestleMania 22, the Hollywood dreams have become a nightmare.
If you were watching at this time, you might remember how genuinely exciting this period felt. Whether you were a SmackDown fan or a Raw fan, and at this point, there are distinct fans of either show who only watch one or the other. It's kind of weird, but it genuinely felt like both shows had something going. You got one gigantic star up and coming on either show. You got a lot of fun and interesting storylines. It feels. I remember coming into this WrestleMania and just being pumped out of my mind. Yeah. I remember coming in and I missed everything. I missed the Mysterio Guerrero match and I was so mad about it because I had to get off work and rush home. I literally was sprinting through the door to get it home and watch this show.
Yeah, I remember at the time feeling like they were heading into this was going to be their next Attitude Era, the next boom was coming here because they just had so many guys who looked like were ready to run, and things go wrong after this, unfortunately. But let's instead talk about kind of where we are here, how we got here. In a lot of ways, this feels like it sets the tone for coming WrestleManias. This establishes some WrestleMania tropes. We got our first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. We've got the Undertaker's first, true feud that's based all around his WrestleMania undefeated streak. We got our two big title matches. Then we've got a dream match between Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle. Just a loaded card.
Yeah, you got the one worker match that's just to put on good with Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. You have Trish Stratus versus the Playboy person, which is a trope for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. So this one will take place from the Staples Center in Los Angeles. First time for WrestleMania in LA since WrestleMania 7 back in 1991. They had done a couple WrestleManias in Anaheim, which isn't far. WrestleMania 12, which also had the Hollywood theme, although they were really nowhere close to Hollywood. And then WrestleMania 2000 was also in Anaheim. They have not to date returned to LA for WrestleMania, but we do know that they will next year. In 2021, they'll be running the new football stadium out in LA.
And thank God, because the Staples Center is a garbage venue for a WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It's too small.
No, WrestleMania 20 being at Madison Square Garden made sense for the history. This one, my understanding, what I've heard is they had decided after WrestleMania 19 didn't do well that they only wanted to run New York and LA and Chicago for the next couple WrestleManias to really hit the big markets. And the LA Coliseum is an old building, and the LA Coliseum is so big, I don't think they felt good that they could sell 100,000 tickets. Selling out a football stadium for WrestleMania at this point, just 60,000, a normal football stadium, not that big a deal. But the LA Coliseum's huge. You got to fill that place, you got to sell over 100,000 tickets, and they were probably not at that point in their popularity or in strength of the WrestleMania brand at this point.
Though it's it would be fascinating to see what they could have drawn in the Coliseum, because like the buy rates on this show wind up being fantastic. Like there's a ton of excitement. Maybe they could
this
have
ends
drawn.
up being the top drawing pay-per-view in wrestling history. It edges out WrestleMania 17 for the new record.
That's wild.
Yeah, over 1 million buys, and I mean, things were hot going in, but you would not have expected that when it's a show where you're making new stars. Usually you think when you do the monster buy rate, it's when you already have stars and you're putting them against each other. You know, WrestleMania 3, Hogan versus Andre. WrestleMania 5, Hogan versus Macho Man. WrestleMania 17, Austin versus Rock. Like, here it's new guys who are drawing this gigantic buy rate.
But there's enough of them that like the fans are invested. And like compare this against like WrestleMania 18, which is a great card on paper, a better card than this one is on paper, but like had so little heat coming in, and the buy rate winds up being completely disappointing.
Yeah, and the build does make all the difference. It's not just, and that's I think sort of what we're seeing right now with these current WrestleManias. It's not that the cards aren't good. It's usually just that there aren't very interesting storylines built into them, I find. It seems like increasingly WrestleMania is just, we're going to put the card together without really figuring out like what the compelling stories they're going to get us there are.
We are recording this on February 20th. WrestleMania is about a month and a week or two out, and there basically are no storylines heading into WrestleMania. That's where we are now. Compare that to this show that we're about to talk about, which has one of the greatest storylines in wrestling history on it.
Yeah. The company's clearly at a turning point. They need new stars. The stars of the 90s are gone. You know, Rock is making movies. Austin is retired. Foley's done. Hogan is winding things down. Goldberg has left. And to compound it, Brock Lesnar, a guy who was supposed to be the cornerstone of their company for years to come, has lost interest in wrestling, gone off to play football, and I don't know what the hell he's doing at this point. Has he gone to New Japan yet?
I don't think he is in New Japan yet, though. Let me just double check on that real quick.
I think at this point he's probably like in a legal battle with WWE to try to get out of his non-compete agreement, because he's realized he's not going to be able to do anything to earn a living under the terms of it.
Japanese promotions, October 8th, 2005. So, yeah, he's in Japan.
Yeah. So they've got to make some new stars, and they've got a lot of options to pick from. They've got John Cena, they've got Batista, they've got Randy Orton, they've got Rey Mysterio, they've got Edge, and also some guys you don't necessarily think of, but were decent candidates for it too, and Shelton Benjamin, Carlito, Chris Masters, Johnny Nitro. It is a very appealing, group of young guys to deal with here.
And for years after this, they're going to continue to try to reboot this youth movement idea. Youth movements only work if there are old guys there to put over the young guys. There comes a time where if you don't have those guys anymore, it's no longer possible for young people to give rubs to other young people. It's just really hard to get that done because there's nobody who's over to start with to transfer heat from. In this case, all of those older guys, there's so many people who are still here to help put people over. Triple H and the Big Show and the Undertaker. You still have
Angle, Shawn Michaels, Booker T. It's a loaded, they've got a loaded roster.
Yeah, so it's half up and coming, hot, exciting people, and half really great veterans who are still here and
half guys who they're just over the peak, but they've still got it. They're not old yet.
So that's the perfect time to put over a new generation, is to have guys like Guerrero putting over Mysterio and Triple H putting over Batista, so that your Triple H's can still be around, but they make the new generation. That's how it's supposed to be. Unfortunately now, you see in when we fast forward to 2008, when everybody, all the old guys start dropping off, but they haven't made the new stars yet, and then all of a sudden the new stars have nobody to get over with. This is the moment. If it's gonna happen, this is the show.
Yeah. Coming out of WrestleMania 20, I think anybody could have predicted John Cena winning the world title the next year at WrestleMania. That was pretty obvious. I don't think anyone would have predicted Batista wins the world title at WrestleMania the next year. I think all the smart money would have been on Randy Orton.
Batista was basically a cardboard cutout of a guy with muscles at WrestleMania 20. Like, he was just there to be the bodyguard, a silent bodyguard. He was just there to be intimidating and look good in a suit. He had no other purpose on the show. Randy Orton got over way too fast.
Yeah, they ended up pulling the trigger on Orton early, too soon in my opinion. Put the belt on him at SummerSlam, had him beat Chris Benoit, and then to kind of compound the issue, turned him face, which I get the temptation. The crowd was getting behind him, but like Randy Orton is just not a good baby face. Randy Orton is not likable.
It was actually, we talked about this on the WrestleMania 20 show, where the WrestleMania 20 is where WWE kind of learns for the first time that their fans can give them direct feedback. And like they were like, oh, maybe we should listen. And I feel like the Orton thing is the first time where they really like steer based on the crowd reactions. And it's a horrible mistake. Because the fans basically are just like, this guy's pretty cool, let's cheer for him. They don't really want him to change. They just thought he was neat. And unfortunately, WWE is like, all right, well, you like this guy? Fuck it. Let's turn him face, put the belt on him, put the rockets to him. And everyone was like, no. We didn't want that, though. No. You are mistaken.
Yeah. So they put the belt on Orton. The idea being he's going to get kicked out of Evolution by Triple H, turn face, and then he'll lose the title to Triple H at the next pay-per-view, and they'll do a long chase where Orton will eventually win the belt at WrestleMania. Orton's babyface turn just doesn't work. You know, he's not ready to be a face. The crowd ends up losing interest in face Orton. So they end up just kind of dropping the idea of Orton winning back the belt here from Triple H, meaning they need somebody to take the belt from Triple H instead. And they go with Batista. And much to my shock, and I'm guessing most people's shock, it works incredibly well.
The fascinating thing about the Batista push is that they decide to do it before there's any evidence that it's going to work. Like, they decide to go with this push before Batista's over, before Batista's having good matches. It's literally just like Triple H is in a meeting. It's just like, well, what about the big guy? Like, let's just do it with him.
100% just like a Triple H pet project. And I think he laid out the booking too. I've heard Batista say in an interview that they wanted to do him and Triple H like on Raw in January. Like, the writers did not have the vision that this would go all the way to WrestleMania. And Triple H was like, no, I'm putting him over at WrestleMania for the title. Like, that's when we're going to do this. So, like, first sign of Triple H, you know, the first sign of Triple H, I think, having a really strong mind for the business.
And using his powers for good.
For good, yeah. I mean, the previous year he put Benoit over. Like, this is the streak where he starts losing at WrestleMania every single year.
This is where the fan opinion on Triple H starts to turn. Because it had been, like, profoundly negative.
Yeah.
And then at 20, everyone's just kind of like, oh, hey, put over Benoit in the middle. And here, just like, oh, hey, that storyline was really great. And then he put over Batista. Cool. And then the following year where he buries John Cena so everyone will love him is the year where everyone's just like, hey, Triple H, cool.
Yeah, so they just slowly built this Batista thing with a bunch of subtle moments. Just Evolution would be doing some bad stuff, and you'd see Batista doesn't look happy about it. You'd catch Batista kind of staring at the world title when it was laying around in the locker room. And then at the Elimination Chamber match at New Year's Revolution, Batista gets caught with the RKO by Orton. Triple H has a chance to break up the pin, but he hesitates and doesn't do it because he wants Batista out of the match. And that's the first. Also, that night, Batista was wildly over at that show. I think maybe because it was in Puerto Rico, and maybe they had promoted to the fans that Batista was Puerto Rican.
It's one of those things where Batista has always been super over everywhere that ethnically ambiguous people live.
Yeah.
Because Batista's Filipino, and he's always been proudly and openly Filipino, but Like, they portrayed him as being from Puerto Rico. Anywhere that you go where you're
Everywhere.
just like,
Greece, Brazil,
fuck
like
yeah, that olive-skinned guy is one of my guys. Like, hey,
yeah.
all right,
I
fine.
I've heard him say like he's got enough. He's got a little bit of everything in his family. So yeah, they just jumped with the full Carney promotion. But yeah, that show was in San Juan, Puerto Rico, which one, it's very strange that there was a pay-per-view in Puerto Rico. And
Yes.
I think it was, I don't know, maybe they did it down there twice, but never again after that because as I recall those shows were both disasters.
But like,
Um,
we have to talk about this too because that moment, that whole elimination chamber is really the foundation of Batista. Because like before that they had done like the small moments. Batista starts looking strong, but that's the first time that they like unleash him on the rest
yeah.
of the roster. Like he annihilates the field at that
Yeah.
elimination
He
chamber.
gets a Goldberg moment where he comes out of the chamber and just destroys everybody.
And like literally he gets caught with like a lucky RKO by Orton. And the moment with Triple H is one of my favorite moments. It's like such a small thing, but it's literally the crux of the entire storyline. He starts to get up out of the corner after he's had his ass kicked to go help. Then he looks around and he just huddles back down in the corner like, "Oh, nobody noticed that
Yeah.
I'm real hurt. Oh no, I can't help him."
And this feud is just full of those moments. I, they show great restraint here. They take their time with it. They don't overdo it, and they build it, and then they build to the big crescendo. And when they do, it's one of the best angles they've ever done. Batista won the Royal Rumble in January. It came down to him and John Cena. This is the infamous like botch where they accidentally both eliminate each other. Batista goes to powerbomb Cena, and they both fall backwards out of the ring. I think Batista was supposed to catch the rope, was the
Yes.
finish they were going for, and he didn't manage to, or he slipped because he's all sweaty and oily. But they both go over the top rope to the floor, and somehow they actually did hit at the exact same time. Like I
It's
feel like
such a miracle.
every other time they try to do this finish, they don't pull it off, and here they did it perfectly by accident.
And it's not like their feet hit the floor at the same time. Like
Their bodies smack. The
at the
pancake.
same exact moment, and they're going fast. So
Yeah.
it's like I can't even believe that this happened, and like it's just pure chaos afterwards because everyone's just like, how the fuck can this happen by accident?
And this is where we get the insane scene of Vince coming down to order the match to be restarted, sliding into the ring and tearing his quad as he hits it like on the ring apron. And he tries to get up and he realizes he can't stand up. So he's just sitting there, like not talking into the mic and just kind of directing them on what to do.
And it's just this surreal scene where like the Royal Rumble ending has been botched, and there's 40 people in the ring just staring at Vince while he sits on the ground and yells at them.
Yeah. And like they drag him out of there, he refuses to be stretchered off and he tears the other quad. Like I'm sure he had kind of knocked it loose sliding into the ring, but tears the other quad like as he's being helped backstage.
What a bad man.
And somehow through all this he didn't appear to be in any pain. Didn't
None.
sell it at all. He's just sitting
None.
there. He can't, like you see him try to stand up and he can't and he falls down, but other than that he just looks like he's totally at peace.
And it's so fascinating too because like they do these little ad libs where like Batista throws Cena back out and says, "No, I won," and then Cena does the same with him. It's so smooth that you would almost expect that this had been done on purpose. So like they play it off well.
I
And
think
Batista,
it worked out great because you're trying to make both of these guys so show that they're totally evenly matched, and it sets a good seed for a future match between the two of them.
and like then they restart the match and Batista catches Cena, throws him out, wins. Big moment for Batista.
Yeah. So then the next sort of step in the storyline was Triple H and Flair conspire to manipulate Batista into not challenging Triple H for the world title, but instead going to SmackDown to convince him to challenge JBL instead.
They go so far as to like have a limo try to like
Yes.
run him off the road.
Yeah, they have a limo that's made up to look like JBL's, try to hit him in the parking lot. And Batista responds by going to SmackDown and smashing up JBL's limo and beating up JBL. But then it comes down to it's the night where Batista has to make his choice. That's going to be the main event segment. the whole show, we don't see Batista. Triple H and Flair freaking out. Where is he? Triple H is talking to Flair and admits to him that he actually staged the whole JBL limo thing because Dave doesn't know what's good for him. I'm going to convince him to do the right thing. And then the camera zooms out and we reveal that Batista is standing right outside the locker room listening to this.
This with a big smile on his face. God, I've never seen a storyline WWE do have so many small details and perfect little touches like this. And also, it shouldn't have been such a surprise to us when we found out that Batista became such a successful actor later on, because it's like his small facial expressions that make this entire storyline. He doesn't oversell anything. He just does like little looks and little smiles and little frowns. Like everything you get is just these small reactions on his face. And all throughout the course of this storyline, you really don't know where Batista stands with Triple H. Like Triple H's paranoia is what causes him to push Batista away. All the while, Batista's been a perfectly great friend to Triple H. He's always helping Triple H win. When Triple H wins the Elimination Chamber, he puts him on his shoulders. Like he's being a great friend. And then it's just Triple H's paranoia that he's going to lose his spot to this guy that causes his own inevitable downfall.
So they do the segment. They've got the table in the ring. They've got Raw and SmackDown contracts on it. They have Bischoff and Teddy Long both make the pitches for their shows. Bischoff says Monday Night Raw is your home. It's where you've become a star. It's where you belong. You should stay here. Teddy Long says you should come to SmackDown, challenge for the WWE title. You and John Cena could be the next Rock and Austin competing against each other. Batista, weighs his options. He takes the SmackDown contract. Flair and Triple H, smile. They give him the thumbs up. Batista gives them a thumbs up. And then his face turns to stone, and he switches to a thumbs down.
And then there's that camera shot where it pans back to Triple H and Ric Flair, who still have their thumbs up, as like all the color melts out of their faces.
Yeah. And he throws Flair out of the ring. He grabs Triple H. He nails him with the power bomb. Rips off his dress shirt. Reveals his body. Signs the Raw contract. Poses on the top rope. Crowd is just going insane. Like, what a perfect segment.
This may be the most perfect segment of wrestling I've ever seen. Just in terms of like what it was trying to accomplish. They built the anxiety and the anticipation of it for so long. They gave nothing away until the final moment. Like you genuinely, like I think we all knew that it was going to be Batista versus Triple H. But
there's a moment where you worry about it. Triple H makes a great speech where he's like, imagine if at the peak of the Four Horsemen's power, Arn Anderson had gone to the WWF and won the WWF title. Imagine if while DX was ruling the scene, I had gone to WCW and won the WCW title. That's what Evolution could do. We could rule all of WWE. And it wouldn't have been the right thing to do, but it actually would have been kind of interesting if Batista had gone to SmackDown and won the WWE title, and what you could have done down the road with Triple H.
And Triple H even basically says and then WrestleMania 22, Batista versus Triple H, both titles on the line. We'll do it the biggest it's ever been done. And it's that's a compelling pitch.
Yeah.
The only thing I maybe would have done is have JBL be here too. Just so it kind of sells the possibility.
Yeah, that maybe he could do something with JBL.
But I don't, and maybe even have him beat the shit out of JBL too.
Because he could have beaten up JBL first, and that would have sold it even more.
And then the cabinet runs in, and then Cena runs in. But that's something else. This is just so focused and perfect. And Batista is so, I cannot express to you how perfect he is in this segment. His face betrays nothing. He's all smiley and friendly, and in that moment where he turns the thumbs down, and literally as he's turning it down, his face is hardening into an absolute brick of granite. And the terror on the faces of Triple H and Ric Flair as they realize they're fucked. And then he just fucking annihilates them. It's everything you'd want from an up-and-coming babyface. He's so cool and awesome and big and powerful. he's everything they've been looking for, and they had no idea it was in him.
Yeah. So over on SmackDown, Cena is challenging for the WWE title, and it's an intense competition between Cena and Batista as to who's going to be the next guy. And coming out of this, you would really think it was going to be Batista, based on how this show was built, based on Batista winning the Rumble, Batista getting to go on last at WrestleMania, Batista having the much hotter and better match at WrestleMania. But then a couple months later in the summer, they end up deciding to move Batista, or just to swap Batista and Cena, have Cena go to Raw, Batista go to SmackDown, and Cena ends up being the one who's the top guy in the company. On this night, do you think that's already the plan, or do you think they think Batista's the guy? And what do you think changed that?
I think that when Vince looks at these two, he sees Batista as more of a short-term big star.
Batista's much older is the other thing. Batista at this point was already into his mid-30s, so he doesn't seem to have as much time left.
Like, Cena is the franchise. Like, you can sort of see that coming. It's almost like if you had the Ultimate Warrior and Sting become stars on the same show. Like, the Warrior burned hotter, but Sting's the safer bet,
yeah.
Right? So it's sort of that. And I definitely think that he knew that Cena was who they were going to go with. I think, honestly, that Vince McMahon learned who John Cena was in January of 2005. Like, literally, it almost seems like, because his character starts to change so abruptly and so definitively right around the Royal Rumble this year.
Yeah, the Royal Rumble is kind of, I feel like, it for him as far as him being universally loved. He comes out at the Rumble and gets one of the biggest pops I've ever heard for his entrance. And then right after that, they start tweaking they start not really even tweaking, like really overhauling his character. Like
they take out the rapping,
stops rapping,
the jokes stop. It's all very serious now.
He stops wearing the throwback jerseys and starts wearing WWE merchandise instead. They make the Chain Gang jerseys that they can sell. And yeah, they start changing all the things that got him over. And it feels like already by this show, you're starting to see the crowd turn a little bit. They're not booing him yet, but the cheers are not nearly as loud as you'd think they'd be when he's coming out here. And then the match with JBL doesn't get over at all.
And the storyline with JBL, it lasts forever, and it's not good. Like, it involves like a whole lot of like John Cena wrestling Orlando Jordan, which is something nobody wants to see.
Something no one ever needed to see.
They do one of these interminable storylines where it's just, well, John Cena can't touch Bradshaw or he's going to get fired and lose his match, blah, blah, blah. So that just results in no heat on the match at all. I don't know. Yeah. It's not good. And they make a horrible disaster by switching John Cena and Batista in the summer. Like, it's a wonderful moment when John Cena comes to Raw. It's like one of the biggest pops. It's huge. It's a huge moment. But the problem is that this is the first time where like the brand split has actually produced what it was meant to produce. They feel like two wholly separate and distinct shows. At this point they really do. Like, they feel like something separate and different. And there are people who only watch one or the other, especially SmackDown, which has an extraordinarily big Hispanic audience, which is not watching Raw at all.
Yeah.
And to switch them, so the people who watch John Cena come up aren't necessarily the same people who are watching him now, and vice versa. And I don't know, like, Batista has a cool factor that John Cena just flatly does not anymore at this point. So I feel like if Batista's wrestling Chris Jericho and Kurt Angle in the summer, those are matches people want to see. Whereas, obviously, we know how they turn on Cena when it's Cena's time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fascinating story that we'll cover more of next week when we kind of reflect on the year that leads us to WrestleMania 22 and how things almost across the board have pretty much everyone on the roster is in a worse place at WrestleMania 22 than they were at WrestleMania 21.
But it also creates this fascinating alternate universe. Like, if Batista stays on Raw, let's say he has the same injury luck that he had on SmackDown, right? That creates a situation where, does Edge become a much bigger star? Because they don't have anybody and it's on Raw?
I think inevitably when Raw's in trouble, they always bail them out by sending them someone from SmackDown. So I think they would have just moved somebody over to Raw.
Yeah, but do guys like Jericho and Christian get a much bigger chance here? Does Benjamin get a much bigger chance here? Like the desire to make John Cena the guy creates a glass ceiling for literally everyone else on the Raw roster for the next 5 years. Because every heel that gets involved in John Cena inevitably gets buried by John Cena. And every babyface is inevitably below John Cena.
So one really notable thing is the absence of The Rock from this WrestleMania. First WrestleMania without him since he came to WWE. First time we don't have him on WrestleMania since 1996. Kind of notable in his absence. Obviously, his movie career has really taken off, but there's a weird story here. His contract expired at the end of 2004. And WWE chose not to renew it, which is totally reasonable. He's not been wrestling for them. They don't want to pay him. Well, he's not going to wrestle. But Rock has talked about this publicly. He said, like, Vince never called him about it. He just, like, got the notice in the mail that they weren't picking up his contract option. And, like, he was really offended by it. And I can kind of understand why. And it's a very weird thing that like severs the relationship between these two parties for years after this.
I think that Rock always saw it as a thing where, like, obviously he had people in his ear telling him that he needed to leave wrestling behind, but I think Rock always intended to come back every so often. Like, he never really intended to leave it for good. And I do think that doing it in this way caused, like, it's like a 10-year gap before he comes back again. And I don't think it would have been anywhere near that long otherwise.
No, he does an appearance like here and there, usually pre-taped. Comes back at one point to induct his dad and his grandfather into the Hall of Fame, but things get frosty here, and it feels totally unnecessary and petty on Vince's part.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Also, Vince made some really weird comment. Like, Vince didn't like that Rock played a gay character in Be Cool, and made some really weird comments about it publicly.
Did he really?
Yeah. Yeah, like him and I think Triple H were like on, I don't know, I think it was like the Best Damn Sports Show or something. They made some like homophobic jokes about Rock playing a gay character. Things got really weird here. Yeah.
There's clearly some bitterness here that Rock has moved on beyond them and they don't need him anymore. Like, that's clearly something that Vince never liked for people to do.
No, you're not supposed to get bigger than the company.
But it's so short-sighted because as The Rock becomes a bigger name, he's elevating WWE's name. Because inevitably you have to say Dwayne Johnson, former WWE wrestler The Rock, and then you're just getting that name out there.
Yeah. So
and you own all of his merchandising, distribution rights, all of his old footage. You own that. This massive movie star.
The thing I've heard is Rock really wanted to work with Sting at this WrestleMania, and obviously didn't happen, couldn't make it happen, but that, I don't know how that feud comes together, but that sounds fascinating.
God, if that's on this show, this might be the best WrestleMania.
I don't know how you make that happen. Like, it feels like it would be just something like modern, where it's just like, for no reason, we're going to have The Rock wrestle Sting.
Like, I can't. First, you'd have to reintroduce The Rock, who hasn't been around in a year.
Maybe he'd be Hollywood Rock, and Sting would be the face.
Yeah, and then you'd have to introduce Sting, who has not been seen by anybody in years.
Since 2001. Yeah.
And has certainly not been seen by WWE only fans ever.
Ever. So, yeah.
But, like, that would have been fucking awesome.
Indeed, it would have been. So the show is April 3rd, 2005 at the Staples Center. Sold out, 20,000-ish in attendance, $2.1 million gate. Pay-per-view does a massive 1.68 buy rate for 1,085,000 buys, edging out WrestleMania 17 for the most bought pay-per-view in wrestling history to this point. And I think it's in the top 5 all time to date.
That's so fascinating. That's not. I guarantee you, they did not expect that.
No. No, I mean, again, based on like the talent that's departed from the previous year, I think you would have been happy holding even from the previous year, which did like 850,000 buys or something like that.
But what this does is it crystallizes to then that, yep, Batista and Cena are the guys. That those are the
Yeah.
dudes. Because if this underperforms, maybe they like, maybe they weren't the answer. But instead, they're like, oh shit, they're the first two guys to move the needle in 5 years.
Uh, in the dark match, there was a battle royal. Would you like to hear me read the participants in this battle royal in the Vince McMahon Royal Rumble voice?
There's nothing in this world that would make me happier.
30 superstars compete in a pre-match dark show battle royal, including Booker T, Chris Masters, Paul London, Hayden Reich, Little Spike Dudley, Nunzio, SmackDown's #1 announcer, Funaki, Doug Basham, Danny Basham, Orlando Jordan, the reflection of perfection, Mark Jindrak, Luther Reigns, Scotty Too Hottie, Hardcore Holly, Charlie Haas, Billy Kidman, Akio, Simon Dean, William Regal, Tajiri, Rob Conway, the Quebecois sensation Sylvain Grenier, Snitsky, the Hurricane, the superhero in training Rosie, Big Vis, Rhino, Val Venus, Tyson Tomko, and Tough Enough winner Maven.
First of all, I think I and all of our listeners thank you dearly for that. Second of all, they should have just fucking called this the first annual Jabroni Battle Royal. This is
You have Booker and Masters, and oh boy, other than that. Like how
this
are
is
any of these people still employed?
there are people in this Battle Royal that I honestly did not know were in this company at the same time.
Scotty Too Hottie was still around?
Like, I had no idea that Maven was still around at the
Yeah.
same time as Simon Dean. Like, what are we doing here?
Maven was in the main event at Survivor Series. He was on Orton's team against Triple H's team.
And then they won, and he had his night where he got to book Raw.
Yeah, that was a really fun stipulation, actually.
Yeah, because then, like, all 5 members of the team would be like, all right, what am I going to do? I get a title shot, and it's a lumberjack match with all of my friends.
Yeah, and still none of them managed to win the title.
I know, that's the best part. And then Eugene was like, we'll play musical chairs, and I'll get a bouncy house.
Ric Flair having to play musical chairs.
That's also one of the all-time great segments.
Lillian Garcia opens the show by performing America the Beautiful. Then they raise the curtain on the screen and they show a video package that highlights all the movie parodies they had done leading up to this. What were your favorites of these? I liked the Pulp Fiction one with Triple H and Eddie Guerrero was really, or Booker T and Eddie Guerrero was really good. I loved the Basic Instinct parody with Stacy Keibler and Benoit and Christian. I can't remember if there was a third guy in there.
Jericho, yeah.
Yeah.
And the famous line, what about sadomasochistic activity?
Christian's such a creepy little bastard.
No, I would say that by far the best one was Christy Hemme and Kurt Angle reenacting When Harry Met Sally.
Oh my god.
I still go back and watch that every couple of months.
So then they have Steve Austin do Maximus from Gladiator.
Can I just say, if Steve Austin were wrestling on this show, this would have been like the greatest surprise build to that imaginable, wouldn't it? Because they do this thing, like if you had just done like little vignettes where it was just like a warrior, like it was obviously Gladiator, but they don't show who it is. And then right before his match, they pull off the helmet and it's Steve Austin, and he's like, I'm going to kick everyone's ass. And then he comes out and kicks everyone's ass. Would that not have been like the greatest build? Of
That
course,
would have
he's
been a
not.
pretty great surprise. He's on, I mean, he does the Piper's Pit segment.
But like, yeah, if he was gonna have a match, this would have been like a red hot build to an actual match for him.
Yeah.
As it is, it's just kind of like a fine little video.
He's been gone for a while. I think his contract expired after WrestleMania, and again, no reason. The him as the GM had kind of run stale. It was time for him to take some time off.
It's just weird that his video is the only one that gets played in full before this show.
Well, I think this was the debut of it. I don't think they had shown this in advance.
But that's so weird. Why his?
Because he's Steve Austin. I don't know. Who would you have used?
I don't know. Somebody who's actually important on this show.
Batista?
Well, actually, that's the thing too. Is like the taxi driver one was very, very good, but like I remember watching it and like Batista steals that. Like there's like 40 guys in it, and Batista steals it, and I was like, we should have known then that Batista had acting chops.
Then they do the pyro, and we get the opening match as WWE Tag Team Champions Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio face off. First time we've ever had tag team champions wrestle each other at WrestleMania. Neither really has anything to do, and they've been having some problems. So Eddie wants to, Eddie is getting jealous of Rey, who's been stealing the show, and Eddie subtly wants to prove that he's the better of the two here.
I feel like Vince was going around back talking to people one day and was just saying something like, hey, what would the best imaginable opening match to a WrestleMania be? And then like everyone just said like, well, Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, but you can't get to that. They're tag team champions. And Vince was like,
Yeah. This, of course, ends up leading to Eddie's brilliant heel turn in the aftermath of this.
The fucking custody papers on hanging for the ladder match. Like,
it's so sad that like overshadows how great Eddie's heel run was, because he was doing probably the best work of his career here.
I hope that we can find. Was that the SummerSlam for this year?
Yeah, we'll do that That SummerSlam's loaded with stuff, because that's got Hogan versus Michaels on it too,
and it's got Matt versus Edge.
Yeah. We'll book that for August. We're definitely doing that SummerSlam this year.
So we won't go down the whole rabbit hole about Eddie's heel turn, but it's one of my favorites of all time. All the way down to playing the cell phone ringtone before his music.
Cell phone entrance.
It's the most heat. Just like, what's the most annoying sound in the universe? Somebody's cell phone going off.
Oh. Eddie is out first in a beautiful baby blue 1950s Cadillac.
God damn, I miss those lowriders.
That's a great car. And then Rey comes out, and very weirdly, for the Hollywood-themed WrestleMania, this is the only one where he's not, like, he doesn't have gear that's like a movie character or a superhero. He's just in kind of normal gear.
It's really bizarre. Like, why?
Like,
it's almost like somebody told him
Daredevil,
not to do
WrestleMania 20, The Flash. WrestleMania. Actually, I guess the year after this, he wasn't a movie character. He did come out in the big, like, Native American headdress. But, yeah, I mean, Captain America, Batman,
the Joker.
Joker, Avatar, like every year this is his WrestleMania signature, and somehow this is the one time he didn't do it.
Yeah, and like the whole thing where he was wearing like the traditional Aztec outfit, that kind of feels like a Vince note, like, oh, we're gonna make our first Mexican main eventer, let's do it.
These two had some incredible matches in WCW. We reviewed Halloween Havoc 97. That's one of my favorite matches of all time. Here, they're much different physically. They both had many injuries. They both probably put on 30-plus pounds since then, so it's not going to be up to that level, but it's still a very good match.
I would go so far as to say that neither one of them is actually a luchador anymore. I think that's just fair to say. Like, the match at Halloween Havoc was a classic Rudo versus Technico match, where just like the high flyer and the guy who catches him who's a dick. This is much more of a WWE type thing, for it's like there are a lot of big spots in here, and it's very cool, and it's a good match. But it's not that style of match. They don't wrestle that anymore here.
No, yeah, they've both kind of had that style beaten out of them by the need to conform to what WWE views as, the proper main event wrestling style.
Though these were two of the best ever at taking that WWE style and
Yeah.
elevating it to an art form. So no shame there.
Yeah. Big highlight. Ray's corkscrew plancha over the top of the floor was incredible.
God, that's a fucking awesome move. I don't think I ever saw him do it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the end of the point where I feel like he could kind of twist his body that way as he's gotten so much bigger.
Though I guess he could do it now that
Yeah,
he's
now
completely
that
refreshed 15 years later.
it's insane what he's become now. The fact that he's back to being like 1998 Rey Mysterio.
Now that they're injecting like puppy fetuses into his knees every night.
It's what it takes. Yeah, Ray just keeps countering Eddie's stuff. Eddie goes for the three amigos. Ray gets him with head scissors. Eddie finally hits all three of the three amigos, but then he goes up and misses the frog splash. Eddie blocks the Hurricane Rana. Ray gets him in the ropes with a drop toe hold, hits the 619. Ray goes for the West Coast pop, but Eddie catches him out of the air with a power bomb. That only gets two, and then Ray catches Eddie with a Hurricane Rana to get the three. They reluctantly shake hands, but you can tell Eddie's pissed here.
And this is the best kind of storyline to me, is the one where just like the seed of resentment is planted in a guy until he loses his fucking mind. Like this is a really good storyline.
They keep having matches, and Ray just keeps beating him, and you can just see Eddie getting more and more angry with it until he snaps.
And it's part of the story that like last year he was the world champion. He was on top of the world. Now he's here. He's the tag team partner of his little buddy, and he's the worst one of the two, and he can't stand
in the opening match, and it just eats him alive. And of course, sadly, this will be Eddie Guerrero's final WrestleMania, but his death in the shadow of it will very much loom over the next WrestleMania.
Our next podcast is going to be such a fucking bummer.
Yeah, it was just a bad time. Like, it just... No, in my mind, Eddie's death really is a turning point in this company.
It's when the light goes out, man. It's when the light of hope leaves the company and us.
We go backstage to see JBL and the Cabinet entering the arena. They run into Triple H and Ric Flair, and they exchange barbs. I always loved these little crossover segments they do at the like joint pay-per-views in these years. They'd always do a good job of coming up with like which character from each show would make a good foil for the other. And Triple H and JBL did a couple of these.
Yeah. This is what I was talking about when I was saying that they do a good job of finally making them feel like two distinct brands. Because when you see JBL and Triple H, it almost feels like people from like two different universes talking. Yeah. Even though, I mean, they're in the same company, obviously. But like these two characters have never really spoken before. Like the JBL character's still fairly fresh.
Exclusively to SmackDown, yeah.
Yeah, but they reveal like, yeah, I know about you. You're that dickhead on the other show who's just me, basically.
Yeah, it's the two bad heel stables, and we've got them on both shows.
And like they would do this other times, like Heidenreich and Snitsky is another fascinating example of like, well, we got two fucking weirdos. Let's have them become friends.
I guess we should mention something that almost happened here, which was Undertaker and Kane against Snitsky and Heidenreich. Was a thing that
built to that.
Yeah, they built to that. They set that up at the Rumble, and someone comes to their senses, but. It's like they were just determined that The Undertaker would never have a good WrestleMania match.
Poor fucking Undertaker had to have been eyeing that one down like,
Motherfucker. We see that Adam Sandler and Rob Schneider are sitting in the front row. And next up, we've got the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. Participants, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Christian, Edge, Kane, and Shelton Benjamin. That is quite the lineup.
Yeah, let's kind of go through and talk about where everybody is at this point, because they're all in vastly different places than they were last year.
Yeah.
So we got Shelton Benjamin, who was part of Team Angle last year. They've decided that he's one of their future stars.
Yep.
They brought him over to Raw. They had him beat Triple H in that classic Raw match.
Yep. Put the Intercontinental title on him.
And then they just kind of stopped progressing him at that point. Like his character never grows past his second month on Raw.
They never gave him a character. He was just athletic and a nice guy. That was all they could come up with.
What did you think of Mama Benjamin?
Very, very dumb. It infuriated me. That hasn't happened yet.
Are you one of the people who feels like though he should have had like a mouthpiece and that could have gotten him over?
Yeah, well, the thing is, faces don't usually have mouth. I mean, do you think Shelton's a face or a heel?
Oh,
Like
he's definitely a
got a
face.
total babyface wrestling style, and yet baby faces don't usually have somebody talk for them.
They
So I
never
don't quite
really
know how to
just
make that work.
they never really gave him the chance to talk. Like he wasn't very good, but they also just never kind of just let him get the chance to stretch his legs and figure
And
it out.
he didn't have a character. What was he supposed to say? Like, who is Shelton Benjamin? Like, we know he's an incredible athlete. Are are there some things in his background that are interesting? Did he overcome obstacles to get to where he is right now? Is there some inspiring story from his past? I don't know. Maybe they should have delved into that.
Does he have any friends? Does he have
Yeah,
any enemies? Does he have any
not
connection
really.
to anyone else? He was like the first of the new generation of guys that WWE just puts in front of you and it explains nothing about. It just like, here's a guy, you're supposed to like him. Why? He's just a dude.
No.
That doesn't mean anything.
Um, so Jericho is the first to enter. This is his idea both in real life and kayfabe. Um, yeah,
How
and
vicious.
Jericho just always coming up with something good for himself to do. But credit to him on this one. This was a stroke of genius.
How fucking vicious is it that Jericho goes to Vince and pitches him like, okay, I got nothing going on. What if we do this Money in the Bank idea?
Yeah, it's like a
And then
battle
I
royal ladder match.
and then I win, and then maybe I like cash it in on Batista, and that's like a big thing. And Vince is
I
like,
love
that's
it.
a fucking great. I love it for Edge.
Let Edge win.
Poor
Um,
Jericho.
So I've heard a few different iterations of this. Like I heard at one point it was like, what if it was just money in the briefcase, it was $100,000 or whatever. This is better than that. The other version was like something. It was like a Hollywood Dreams match or something, and the winner would win a wish. And I think the idea was Rob Van Dam would win, and his wish would be to bring back ECW.
So just anything that he wants
Yeah,
that
it's
you
well,
can just
it's
have.
intriguing because if you think about it, like you could use it for you could be like, I want to get a match with this person, or like I want this kind of like there are some things you could do with that, but it's weird to be like a wish. Like it's too vague, I feel like.
Yeah, it could be like Batista wins it and he wants a retirement match with Triple H to get him the fuck out of here.
It's kind of the idea. It could be like it could be an open contract. So like your thought is, of course, they're just going to challenge for the world title, and like sometimes they would, but other times they'd be like, no, I want to wrestle this guy in a Hell in a Cell match.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I want to wrestle Trish for the women's title. Well, okay, I guess.
So I mean, Jericho at this point, on his way out of the company, he'll leave after SummerSlam. It just felt he just needed a break. He had gotten stale at this point.
This is his pink and orange period, which is the
Yeah.
period after like the colors in his entrance video change, and it's just wretched. He's got no direction. Babyface Jericho has always been a little especially in this era because like he just doesn't give a shit. Like he's
Face
easily
heel.
huh?
Does he turn heel to wrestle Cena? I thought he was.
He
That's
turns
right. He
heel
turned
to wrestle
face.
Cena.
Oh, that's right. He turned face the previous year with the Christian stuff. Yeah, I
Yeah.
cannot think of one thing he did between WrestleMania 20 and this WrestleMania. Can't
Well, he
tell you one thing.
well he won musical chairs
Yeah, that was the highlight.
for an intercontinental title match.
Benoit is out next. He's also kind of, he's obviously fallen a long way from the previous year. He was in the main event and won the world title. There's just, he put over Orton and then he feuded with Edge and he feuded with Evolution, but there's just kind of not a lot for him to do on Raw. He'll get freshened up by moving to SmackDown in the months after this.
He's also just kind of settled into where he should be at this point in his
Yeah.
career, like putting guys over, just having good matches. Like he reached the mountaintop. Now it's okay for him to kind of settle back into the mid card.
Workhorse Intercontinental US champion.
Yeah, just beloved veteran, tough badass old guy.
You can throw him into a main event if you need to.
Yeah, it's exactly like he's already gotten what he wanted. This is a perfectly okay version of settling somebody back into the mid card.
Christian is out third with Tomko backing up. Christian is living his best life. This is Captain Charisma has arrived.
It is fascinating that Christian hits on this character with absolutely no support from like the office at all. They do not want him over. They do not need him over.
Vince
But
wants
like
to cover his face with a blue dot.
But Christian like gets a haircut, starts wearing good clothes, starts cutting
working out.
He comes up with all these catchphrases and all these nicknames. He gets Tomko, and they have great chemistry. And like he just becomes like an overnight sensation, especially among Smarks, where he was like the hope of a new generation.
Yeah, of course. It's funny. I always think of Christian as being really short, but I think he's actually reasonably tall and just really skinny and like has really long legs.
Yeah, he's almost as tall as Orton, because when they were feuding, they were about the same height. He's just way skinny.
God, that's weird. Yeah, I think of him as being like 5'9". I think he's actually like 6'2".
Yeah, exactly. It's just that he always wrestled with Edge, who's like 6'5".
Yeah, Edge is deceptively tall.
Yes, he very much is. And like Christian's getting crazy over. He's still very much a heel, but like fans love him at this point. And then there's Kane.
Kane!
Where are we in the life cycle of Kane?
He is about to be Sad Dad Kane, where he impregnates Lita.
Oh no! Where they put Kane as the fill-in for Edge.
Yeah,
they don't want to acknowledge
Hardy.
it on screen.
Yeah, he fills in the role of Matt Hardy as the one who Lita cheats on him with Edge.
Oh my god. The original Cuck storyline.
Yes.
The forerunner to all of our storylines today.
Yeah, this is another brilliant Kane entrance where they've got a bunch of ladders on the stage and they catch fire from his pyro.
That's so fucking rad.
This was brilliant. Like, this was a step up from, like, the set screens catching fire the previous year.
I always wondered if when they put Kane in a couple of these Money in the Bank or like Money in the Bank or like TLC, like Kane is easily the big man who's been in the most ladder matches ever. I feel confident saying that. And I always wondered if they went to him just like...
He's good in them. I always enjoy him as just the wrecking machine.
He's perfect for it because he's still agile enough to actually do the stuff.
He can climb the ladder. He can jump off it. He can take the falls. But yeah, it's not like when Henry or Big Show would get in one and you're like, that guy's not like taking a fall off a ladder. It's too much.
Yeah. And I did like when they had Big Show in that one and they brought out the big special ladder for him
the giant reinforced ladder that he could climb. Big Show and props. I love the giant chair when he feuded with Sheamus too.
That was the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. Just like, what's my special weapon? A big ass chair.
And then Edge comes out to pretty good heat. Like, he will become mega over as a heel over the course of this year once he gets Lita and they do the Matt Hardy storyline. But he turned heel back in the fall when he didn't get voted into the world title match at Taboo Tuesday, and he attacked Shawn Michaels and cost him the match against Triple H. And, from there has just generally been kind of a dickhead.
This is so great. As we've talked about at these other WrestleManias and other shows too, Edge was supposed to be the guy. Edge was supposed to, along with Brock Lesnar, be the light of the new generation. One would have Raw, one would have SmackDown. These were the two. But Edge gets hurt and misses his opportunity. Yeah. And now, when he's finally back, Cena and Orton is who it actually was when he came back, have supplanted him. So now he's back on the back burner again. And his entire heel turn is born out of his very real bitterness at all of this happening.
That's what makes it so good, is he channels that real anger that he's not in the spot he thinks he should be, and that the fans... And he came back after WrestleMania 20 as a face, and they were trying to push him as like the new Steve Austin, anti-authority, feuding with Bischoff. And the fans didn't care. Like, that is not the role for Edge. He is not an anti-authority badass. So that just kind of flopped.
Yeah,
and that's not that they turned on him better.
It's not that they turned on him like The Rock or anything. They just didn't react at all, and it caused him to just get buried down the mid card. And he had to basically rebuild his whole character from scratch. And just like that bitterness comes through so clearly. Just the sneer on his face when he looks at people. And like the promo, there are a couple of promos that Edge cut in his career, which are some of the bitterest, angriest promo. Do you remember the promo he cut on Cena that one time? That was just like 10 things I hate about you. It's like, I hate your stupid shirts, and I hate your
music,
wristband.
your shorts, yeah.
I hate that people think that you're better than me. I'm better than you, God damn it. Just like, that all starts here.
Yeah.
He had been internalizing those feelings from this point, when like he should have had Cena's spot. Like, that's just the truth. That was his spot.
He's done a good job changing up. He's got a different look. He's cut his hair shorter. He's got some new tattoos, changed his tights, different jacket. He's got new music. He's got the new entrance with the pyro where, him like pointing to the sky and the giant pyro behind him is such a brilliant entrance.
God, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's iconic. That's the thing. He's like halfway to the rock star Edge, and then inevitably, I don't know how he hits on like the phrase rated R superstar, but that's one of the 2 or 3 best nicknames in wrestling history.
Yeah.
And like he'll eventually get to this like, I'm a fucking rock star, not in the way that like Jericho wants to be one, but like I'm just gonna live that.
So everyone gangs up on Kane at the top of the ramp. Kane fights them all off. He goes into the ring, but he gets double suplexed by Benoit and Shelton. Then they do this thing where everyone does dives out of the ring onto everyone progressively. Shelton does it and just springboards like 10 feet in the air. This guy is a freak.
This is Shelton's match, is it not?
Yeah. Oh, we'll get to he does a spot later in this match that is, to this day, I think the greatest spot I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's like right up there with like Edge spearing Jeff off the belts, like as like one of the greatest spots in wrestling history. But like, God damn, and this sort of creates you sort of became, while we had all of these ladder matches at WrestleMania, there's the Shelton Benjamin spot, right? As like the up and coming high flyer who just does some wild shit and gets more over than everyone else, even though they don't win.
Yeah. I mean, Shelton pretty much punched his ticket to be in these things for life. He's in like the next 5 of them.
And then they'd have like Evan Bourne do it or Kofi Kingston do it. Like they just became like, all right, well, who's going to do the Shelton thing in this match?
Yeah. Running theme, Benoit gets his arm destroyed by Edge with a ladder and is kind of out of commission for the rest of the match. Benjamin does a springboard clothesline that takes out both Edge and Christian. Shelton climbs, Jericho cuts him off. Christian sets up another ladder and he climbs it. Benoit climbs the other side. Edge sets up a third ladder. He climbs that one. Everyone except Kane is fighting at the top of the ladders, and then everyone gets thrown off. Shelton hits Edge with a T-bone suplex off the ladder.
God damn.
So Jericho climbs up the ladder. There's a second ladder that's like leaning horizontal, leaning up against it. Shelton proceeds to run up the ladder that is, perched against it, runs up the ladder and clotheslines Jericho off the ladder. This might be the greatest spot I've ever seen.
He does it so easily that it's almost deceptive how unbelievably difficult this would be. Like,
imagine anyone else doing this.
Even if you were just running up an incline that steep that was solid, it would be incredibly difficult because it's basically at like a 45-degree angle. Yeah. Like it's not an easy climb.
10 feet in the air.
But he's sprinting up the rungs of a ladder on its side. Yeah, he's not looking down.
I can barely climb a ladder slowly. He runs up it.
And then like clotheslines him off the top and like jumps and like lands on his fucking feet.
In one motion. The crowd goes wild for this. I mean, it feels like they had this was an opportunity to like refresh Shelton and renew his push, and they didn't take it.
I also got to say too, like, did he pitch this? Did someone pitch it to him? How do you even get the idea that? How
does he know he can do this?
Did they practice this? How do you practice this?
Do you think? Okay, here would be my guess. I bet he's doing like the Stairmaster at the gym, and he starts thinking, what if I ran like up the ladder? and they realized you can't just like run up one that's straight up, but if you lean one, and then they probably tried it and he could do it.
I just imagine, like, if I were Vince, I make him do this like 20 times in a
Oh
row
yeah.
before I'm convinced he can do it.
God, he could blow his knee out if he steps in the wrong spot.
And his idea is like, okay, yeah, you think you can do this, but literally no human being on Earth can do it. Well, son of a bitch, you can do it. All right, fine. Only you and Bull Buchanan.
Yeah, I mean, they do a series of spots where somebody is about to get it and gets thrown off. Benoit hits Kane with a diving headbutt off the ladder. That is a little hard to watch in retrospect. That is not a good idea.
Nope. It's not awesome.
Yeah, he had a cut over his eye that he opened up in the process. Benoit climbs the ladder. Kane sits up. Kane and Benoit fight at the top of the ladder. Benoit knocks him off. Looks like he's going to get the win, but Edge shows up, hits him with the chair in his bad arm, and that allows Edge to climb up the ladder and win. Great match. I thought that was one of the best Money in the Bank matches.
God, it's so good. Like, the fact that it's the first one makes it very special, but it also just had, like, just the perfect combination of talent in it.
Yeah, they would come up with better and crazier spots as the years would go on, but I thought this match told a really good story and had really strong over characters in it.
And it helps that they have guys in this one. Everyone in this match, except for Shelton, has been in like 50 ladder matches.
Yeah.
So, like, these are old vets. This is nothing new to them.
Yeah. Eugene comes down to the ring. I'm impressed he's walking because I'm pretty sure he blew his knee out at New Year's Revolution.
He did, and it was very awkward.
God, that show, didn't Lita blow her knee out on that show too?
She sure did.
God, can't believe
in like two consecutive matches, yeah.
Yeah, and then the next year at New Year's Revolution was when Triple H tore his quad the second time.
And that pay-per-view went away.
Yeah. Eugene says this is his second favorite WrestleMania after WrestleMania 3, where, quote, all the midgets attacked King Kong Bundy.
Eugene segments already.
6 months before this, Eugene was like the most over babyface in wrestling.
That's such a hard thing to remember, that there was a moment where Eugene was literally like the foil for the top heel champion.
It was just always a character that wasn't going to last very long, and then overstay its welcome.
It sure did. It's
Speaking
welcome
of
with
things
about
that didn't last very long and overstayed their welcome, Muhammad Hassan and Daivari interrupt him.
I forgot. I literally forgot that Muhammad Hassan was in the company at this time, and I said out loud to my wife as we were watching this, like, man, how can this segment get any more offensive? And then his music hits, and I was like,
yeah. The heat when you would hear that music.
Now, I will say this. I had a ton of fun around this time. I made it my ringtone, and I would just, like, interrupt people with it constantly. Like, if my friend would be talking to his girlfriend, I would just, like, set off the ringtone. Because that was his gimmick, because he just interrupted everyone all the time.
That annoying music that drew a Pavlovian response from the crowd.
And here's the thing. I remember at the time thinking that it was a good gimmick, that it was a strong heel heat, that Muhammad Hassan did a good job with it, such as it is. When he came out here, my immediate response was, wow, he does not look Arabic at all.
No, pretty sure he's an Italian dude from New Jersey.
That's exactly what he is. Like, I don't think it occurred to me at the time how ridiculous it looked, but like, no, dude, that's a white dude. What are we doing here?
Yeah. This will turn out to be a career-killing gimmick, as, of course, they will have the poorly timed terrorist angle with him that aired like 2 days after the London subway bombing, resulting in his character being banished from television forever.
Let's also point out that I believe that Muhammad Hassan became a thing during the reign of one Bruce Pritchard.
Shock.
Yeah.
Hassan cuts a promo ripping Los Angeles. They jump Eugene, and Hassan puts him in the camel clutch. Then Real American hits and Hulk Hogan comes out to make the save. He sends the bad guys packing and then he poses. It was a fun little segment.
I hated every second of this. And then when Hogan came out, I was like, it got more offensive again.
It did somehow.
And like, he has just had like his 4th hip surgery.
Yeah.
He is not in any shape to do it. He can't do the leg drop, so he just winds up throwing him out of the ring. Like, it's not fun to see him here, really. He feels so removed from like the Hogan that we like had a lot of fun with a couple years before. He looks like he's aged 15 years since that.
Yeah, his health has gone way downhill, as you mentioned. Yeah, I think he had just had hip surgery.
Yeah.
Him and Michaels will team up against Hassan and Daivari at Backlash the month after this.
And it will cause a couple weeks of the worst television in WWE history, as it's just like interminable Raws. And then finally, Shawn Michaels saves us from it by super kicking Hulk Hogan in the face.
Yes. Video package for Undertaker versus Orton. This feud started because Orton had nothing to do for WrestleMania, both in kayfabe and reality.
Yeah.
He was just kind of a wandering soul after having gotten his ass kicked by Triple H over and over again.
And after they canceled the Undertaker storyline, he really had nothing to do either.
Yeah, so pair the spares, and it ends up working out really well for both of them. Billy Graham was randomly on a Raw, I think, promoting his DVD, and they did a backstage segment with him and Orton where Graham told him to make an impact, become a legend, and that was his inspiration to challenge The Undertaker for WrestleMania. He wants to, beat the Ultimate Legend, break the streak at WrestleMania. This is the first time that Undertaker's streak is the focal point of his WrestleMania feud, and it will be for all his subsequent WrestleMania matches.
Yes, and this was inevitable for the Legend Killer gimmick. Like, eventually you're going to get to Taker, because he's the biggest legend that's still around.
Orton turned heel by hitting his girlfriend Stacy Keibler with an RKO on Raw, just to kind of show how bloodthirsty he could be.
That was weird, though, because we never really seen anybody... Like, attacking women was still a thing that happened during this period, but not really like Stacy. She was not like non-wrestler women. That was unusual.
And Bob Orton appeared on SmackDown to beg Undertaker to show mercy on his son, but that turned out to be a setup. What did you think of bringing in Bob Orton and pairing him with Randy here? Were they just trying to get Randy to behave himself?
I think that was part of it. I do think that it kind of worked. It took off after the first couple of times. By the time they get to where Bob's actually in matches and shit, it's the same as Chavo Classic. For a little while, it's refreshing to have him, and he's an old hand, and he gets over because he just knows how to work crowds. But after a while, it's no, we really don't want to see the old man wrestling. And then we find out that he has hepatitis C, and he almost infects The Undertaker with it.
Yeah, not good times where Undertaker he blades for the Hell in a Cell match with Orton, even though he has hepatitis.
Isn't that on this same SummerSlam that we're going to do?
No, I think that was at Armageddon.
I was about to say, what a fucking SummerSlam.
That was almost the end of Johnny Ace when Undertaker found out that, he knew and had, given Orton the okay to blade.
Oh, how did Johnny Ace survive as long as he did?
Orton out first in all his cocky shithead glory. He's got the gold firework pyro while he's doing his pose at the top of the ramp is just an all-time classic.
That, when combined with his theme music, which I know you love it, and to me it's just the perfect dickhead theme music, because it's just it's so annoyingly shitty as a song.
Exactly, it represents Randy Orton. He hated it.
Yes, because he wanted to come out to some metal, which is no way. Literally, Randy Orton pitched and for 1 week got CM Punk's theme song.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Randy Orton with that music?
No. It's Bizarro World stuff.
It took Randy Orton's... I feel like his entire career, Randy Orton has had a drastically different idea of his character than the writers had.
And
And
I
that's
think
been like,
I think he hates voices too.
I bet he does. That was like the compromise. And now he's probably so sick of it.
Yeah, I mean he's had that song for over 10 years now.
It literally means nothing at this point. Like
Yeah,
that character no longer exists.
he's kind of gone back to it now. I feel like.
Maybe a little bit.
Then Druids come out. Undertaker makes his entrance. This is where he quote unquote floats to the ring, but I feel like you can see the platform he's standing on through the fog.
Why would you do the above shot, which blatantly shows the platform? I don't understand. But also, like, he's clearly like not balanced very well on it because he's like super shaky, and then when it stops, he almost falls off.
They play a little cat and mouse game as Orton keeps evading Taker. Leapfrogs Taker, catches him with a drop kick and a backdrop. Taker gets him with a big right hand. Orton goes for the RKO, but Taker blocks it and throws him over the top rope. That is a nasty bump. A couple of years after this, Orton will take that bump in a match against Triple H and break his collarbone on the fall, which
Sure
doesn't
will.
really surprise me.
Yep.
Taker hits old school. He goes for the Yakuza kick in the corner, but misses. Orton knocks him off the apron into the barricade. Orton telegraphs a backdrop, and Taker catches him with the DDT. Big clotheslines from Taker in the corner. Snake Eyes, he goes for the big boot, but Orton gets him with a back elbow. Great counters here. They're putting over how good Orton is, that he can counter anything Undertaker throws at him.
That's so the best part about Randy Orton is that he's such a cocky asshole and he backs it up every single time.
Just so smooth.
Ugh.
Loud Randy sucks chant gets going, and they're right, he does.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Taker puts on the Dragon Sleeper. What's this called? Taking care of business?
Taker care of business.
Taking care of business. Jesus Christ. Orton counters it with a DDT, which is amazing.
God, like Randy's coming up with stuff in this match. I also kind of feel like, how happy do you feel like Undertaker was to have somebody like him?
Yeah,
To like,
getting to be working boots Taker here.
yeah, like you almost sometimes I feel like Taker just sits around coming up with spots he could do if he ever got to wrestle anybody good.
Which he does like once every 5 years.
Yeah, so when he gets like the Michaels match, he's just like, here's the 85 spots I've been thinking about since I was wrestling Heidenreich in 03.
Taker hits Snake Eyes. He comes off the ropes with a big boot. Orton gets him with a power slam for a 2 count. That was a great one.
God, it's so good.
Orton power slam. I mean, The Undertaker's a huge dude to be hitting with that snap power slam.
And Taker is getting up for Orton here. Like, he's like, this is bumping Taker. He wants to take some big-ass bumps.
Orton with a 10 punch. Taker goes for the last ride. Orton slips out. He goes for the RKO, but Taker blocks it. The ref gets bumped. Bob Orton shows up, nails Taker with his cast that he's still wearing after 20 years. That's enough for a long 2 count.
Imagine the smell of that thing.
Taker goes for a choke slam, and in the spot of the match, Orton, like, changes direction in the air and RKO's him. This was so damn cool.
This was a time, like, obviously in, like, Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit matches and the like, you saw a lot of innovative counters and things like that. But we hadn't really seen a move like this since, like, DDP with the Diamond Cutter. Where just, like, this is the beginning of the out-of-nowhere RKO. In the beginning, Orton would just kind of, like, run into the RKO, and it wasn't really like this. But, like, this, I don't know that I've heard a crowd pop this loud for a random move in a match like this.
Yeah, they explode on this.
Because the crowd has been into this match, but I think there's the feeling that, like, all right, Orton's not going to win. And there's this moment where I've seen this match 20 times. I know what happens. I lived the future. But there's this moment where he pins Taker and you're like, oh my God, this could be it.
Oh, you can see the anxiety on the faces of all the fans, like facing the hard camera, as they're like, no, no, kick out, kick out, kick out, kick out. Oh, okay.
And then when he
As
does, and like Taker times it perfectly, so like the crowd loses their shit when he kicks out.
Orton stays cool. He does the throat slash. He gets Taker up for the tombstone, but Taker counters it into his own tombstone, and that's enough to get the pin.
This is a great match.
Yeah.
Like
This is better than I remembered it being.
And it's unfortunately it's so good that it convinces them that they should do the storyline for 9 more months.
Yeah, that was not so good.
And Orton never fucking wins a single match in it. But this match is really good. That spot is amazing. This sort of brings Orton back to life after the stasis that he was in after Triple H buried him 10 feet underground. So now we got to talk about the question, right?
Yeah.
Should Orton have won this match?
No, because the streak would end up drawing a ton of money. It would have been, I mean, Orton would have been bigger if he had done it, but I don't think it's the equivalent of like what the streak would end up meaning to the company and to WrestleMania.
I agree, but that's in retrospect. At the time,
Yeah. At the
should he have
time,
won
the
this
streak's
match?
not that big a deal, and it would have made a lot of sense to put him over because I think you could have really reignited him. He's turned heel, and now he beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. And, like, what a strong challenger he is to either Batista or Cena at that point.
Yeah, if we get him, because he's the obvious heel foil to both of those baby faces.
Yeah.
Like, the future is Cena and Batista versus Orton and Edge. That's where we're going.
Yeah.
So, like, we can get right into that. You could have him facing Batista by SummerSlam. Like, it's, like, right there. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is he's going to lose so much to The Undertaker in such a boring amount of times and boring ways that he'll just become listless until, like, '07, where they just reheat him completely. And it's a shame. Like, we miss out on a lot of years. This Legend Killer gimmick just kind of dies a slow, sad death versus The Undertaker. And it has more ways to go.
Doesn't he kind of run out of legends to kill?
Well, the problem is he never gets his hands on the big two, which I guess he can't, but, like, that's Austin and Rock.
Yeah, it's just not possible.
Like, the end game of the Legend Killer is Rock versus Orton. And I don't think... If we're never going to get there, then whatever. We're never going to get there. But if you ever do get to that match, that main event's a WrestleMania.
Yeah. I mean, him and of all the people for Austin to wrestle, Orton seems like exactly the kind of guy somebody with a neck injury can wrestle.
Oh, yeah. Orton's not going to hurt you with any of his shit.
Yeah.
Maybe his overly enthusiastic headlocks.
Yeah, the only person he hurts is himself because he's got those hypermobile shoulders and they pop out really easily, which they did in this match, and he ends up missing the next couple months with a shoulder injury.
I will never forget the time that he was pounding the mat with his fist
Oh
so
my
hard
God.
for the RKO that he pops his fucking shoulder out of socket.
No, it's super easy for him to do. Like I think he's gotten better over the years because he's done a bunch of like physical therapy and training to like strengthen his muscles or whatever. I think he has a really elaborate stretching routine he has to do too. But yeah, I mean, for a couple years here, it seemed like it would happen at least once a year. He'd separate one of his shoulders.
Yeah, it's one of these rare disorders that like some people almost grow like a second shoulder like socket. So it just kind of like constantly deviates between the two. It sucks. Like it's not fun.
One time, I think he heard it like, those trash cans with wheels on them. He was like taking the trash out of his house, and like it shifted weird, and his shoulder popped out.
That sucks.
Yeah. Next up, video package for Christy Hemme versus Trish Stratus. The story here is that Hemme won the Divas search and then did Playboy, and Trish got jealous of her Playboy spread. Lita trained Hemme for this match and is managing her here. This may have been the time to do like the big Trish versus Lita match if Lita hadn't blown her knee out in January.
And I think that probably would have been the idea, honestly, because that basically is what this feud becomes. This is also the second year in a row that is basically about a person who Playboy would much prefer to have being jealous about somebody else getting a Playboy centerfold.
Yeah.
If Trish had done Playboy,
Oh, that would have shattered the record.
It would have been out of this world.
What are your memories of the Divas search? I remember it being a colossal catastrophe.
It was in many ways like this generation's version of the Brawl for All, where it was just such a massive miscalculation made by somebody with such a poor idea of what this company needed or was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Imagine that you're Trish, right? And you've worked all these years to like become a credible wrestler. And at this point, she's incredible in the ring. Like she takes Christy Hemme to a passable match. And that's
Christy Hemme, to my knowledge, had no wrestling training before she won the Divas search, so
none.
she's been training for like a couple months here, and she's got a match on WrestleMania.
And like a lot of people were very bitter about that, and they should have been. It's ridiculous. Christy does her best. I'm not going to hate on Christy Hemme. It's not her fault. She's put in an impossible situation here. She does better than Ashley Massaro would do in the exact same spot.
Yeah.
But Trish is able to carry. Basically, this is the metaphor of wrestling a broomstick to a 5-star match. Like, this isn't a 5-star match by any stretch, but Trish is that good at this point.
No, it's not the disaster that it should be.
There's no women's division in this company at this point. Like, nobody's around. It's just Trish. And who are they giving her to work with? They bring in a bunch of models and have a competition of which one's the hottest.
Yep.
And all of the things, they aren't wrestling things. They're just like, here's a pie, do something sexy with it.
Oh, God. And
My butt is hungry.
The segments where they would give them live mics, and they would say the most disgusting, like, offensive, you can't say that on TV stuff.
Yep.
This went on for months. It felt like years, but I think it drew big ratings was the thing.
Yeah, I understand what they were trying to tap into. Like, this is when American Idol is getting, like, gigantic, like, blowing everybody away. They're trying to tap into that and get, I think there was, like, even, like, text for your favorite diva and, like, vote for them or something like that. I don't know if that was this one or a different one, because they did this for a couple years. But this is a Johnny Ace thing. I don't know if it was specifically his idea.
But this is of Johnny Ace.
It's his vision. Yeah. And Johnny Ace's version of WWE, women are just super hot and never do anything else except be hot.
Yeah.
And that's so violently offensive to me.
And the issue isn't models. Trish is a model. But Trish wants to be a wrestler. Trish worked her ass off to become a good wrestler.
And there are other people who work their ass off too. I'm never going to hate on the people who got put in this spot but busted their ass. Like, Tori Wilson busted her ass. Candice Michelle busted her ass. Kelly busted her ass to get good. They never did get good. But, like, the fact that they became passable pro wrestlers is an outstanding testament to the fact that they wanted to be. Christy Hemme does not want to be a pro wrestler.
But she's handed, what was it? It was the $250,000 contract. I don't think they did $1 million for this one.
Yes, though even so, that's like $50,000 a year for like 6 years. Like it's not really, but that's how they did it back then.
Yeah. Trish dominates until Hemme blocks a chick kick and kicks Trish in the vagina.
Just kicks her right in the vagina.
I mean, I'm sure that hurts. Can't imagine it's the same as being kicked in the testicles.
It's very, of course it hurts. Getting kicked anywhere hurts.
Getting kicked, yeah.
There's stuff there that doesn't want to be kicked, for certain.
It is pretty painful to watch Hemme wrestle.
I love her enthusiasm. She's got charisma. Like, I can't say that she doesn't. Yeah. But she honestly looks like a trade show model who's gotten lost and wound up in the ring. Like, she's doing her best, but she doesn't belong there. And poor Lita's just standing outside watching. And like, everybody just wants Trish and Lita, because Trish is killing it at this point. This heel character,
she's so evil,
this straight shooting heel character.
Yeah. And here she's wrestling in like suspenders and pants. It's the most heelish look I've ever seen.
the most heelish look in the history of the wrestling business is what she pulls out at Kane and Lita's wedding as she arrives in a lingerie wedding dress to talk shit about Lita at her own wedding.
Oh man.
That's the most heelish move anyone's ever performed ever.
Trish hits the chick kick and gets the win in about 5 minutes. Let's move on.
My admiration for Trish grows for every single WrestleMania that we watch.
As like her growth
is leaps and bounds, despite the fact she has no one to work with. No one.
This is her last WrestleMania. Well, it's her last WrestleMania until 27, when she comes back for that match. I don't remember exactly when
I thought she had one with Mickey.
Oh, she wrestles Mickey. That's right. I got the timeline. She wrestles Mickey at the next WrestleMania. She finally got a real opponent and a good storyline.
And finally, she was just like, okay, I can leave because there's somebody decent here.
Yeah.
Here you go. Here's the legacy. Please don't drop it. Goodbye.
Things are about to get better because Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels is up next.
Okay. When we're talking about Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels, there's a disconnect between what the match is and what people thought the match was at the time. There were people who called it at the time the greatest wrestling match in the history of professional wrestling.
Yeah, like the Steamboat versus Savage of 2005.
It won like the match of the year from everyone.
Yeah.
It's not that.
My opinion on this match has evolved. I used to really not like it. I used to watch it and be like, this is stupid. Maybe I've just gotten nicer as I've aged, but this time I enjoyed it. But like, I remember in the past watching it and be like, this is the dumbest match I've ever seen. There's no psychology. They're not selling anything. It's just a bunch of spots on top of each other that make no sense.
Well, the irony is that we talked before about how Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit basically remade what indie wrestling was with their matches, right? Like everyone tried to follow and live up to their matches earlier on. And this is sort of also another version of that. Like Chris Benoit versus Kurt Angle is what all indie matches are aspiring to be, and Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels is what all indie matches actually are. Which is a loose connection of awesome stuff.
So this feud started back at the Rumble, where Michaels eliminated Angle from the match, and then Angle came back in and threw Shawn out to get revenge. It's a dream match that had surprisingly never happened before this because they'd always been on different shows. The build was fun as Kurt set out to do everything that Shawn had done in his career, which included beating Marty Jannetty in a surprisingly awesome match.
They bring back old-ass Marty Jannetty for a match, and they tear the house down.
Yeah, this ends up being like a 15-minute, like 2-commercial break match, and it's awesome.
It rules. They were actually considering bringing Marty back for a little while
and then
for this.
He fucked up again.
He blew it.
God, Marty Jannetty.
But this will eventually get to the great... I keep saying the greatest segment in wrestling history. Gosh, there were a lot of great segments around this time.
Tony Schiavone, the greatest night in the history of our sport.
Okay, but Sexy Kurt is arguably the finest moment of Kurt Angle's career.
Yeah, so he brings out Sherry so they can sing his theme song, Sexy Kurt, together. I'm just a sexy Kurt. I'll make your ankle hurt. Ankle hurt!
And, like, it's so perfect because it's not just that he's like come up with this song and he's got Sherry, but like he's trying to do like Shawn's moves. So he's like shimmying and shaking. It's like your dad doing that. It's ridiculous. He's wearing like one of those cut-off shirts that like Shawn always wears.
And then he puts Sherry in the ankle lock.
My favorite part of that whole segment is Sherry goes, because she realizes halfway through she's not supposed to say Shawn. And it's the look of fear on her face, like, oh no, am I still going to get paid for this?
Oh, always good to see Sherry.
Oh, God.
I think she goes into the Hall of Fame the year after this.
I love her to distraction. God damn it, Sherry.
Shawn is out first. This is his first WrestleMania wearing the chaps. How do you feel about that gear in comparison to the tights?
I thought it was so much better because he has such chicken legs, and he always did. I never thought the tights were
especially
an
later in
amazing
his
look.
career.
Yeah, I never thought the tights were an amazing look, but by the time we get to like 1,000 Sean, he looks like a scarecrow. The chaps at least gave him like the illusion of size. And it's amazing that Kevin Nash didn't teach him that secret much earlier, because that's the Kevin Nash special. Like, my legs are roughly 10 inches around, so I wear giant leather pants with tassels.
Yeah, the other thing it was great for was it made an incredible noise when he would slap them on the Sweet Chin music.
Yes, it
Starts
literally,
sounding like a shotgun going off.
and it's the beginning of his evolution into old cowboy Shawn Michaels. It's good, like it works.
Yeah. Kurt is at second. Shawn slaps Kurt. Kurt takes him down. They go at it on the mat. In a surprise that kind of lacks any logic, Michaels just keeps taking Kurt down with headlocks for the first 5 minutes of the match.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you could have done in this match that I would have gone along with. Shawn Michaels out wrestling Kurt Angle for 5 consecutive minutes is not really one of them.
Kurt gets Shawn in the ankle lock, but Shawn slips out. They go to the floor. Shawn clears out the announce table. Kurt gets him up for an angle slam into the ring post. It was supposed to hit his back. It looked like it was actually his leg that hit the post.
Ouch.
Kurt works the back. Shawn gets racked up in the corner and then hit with a belly-to-belly suplex. Kurt sets up for a superplex, but Shawn fights him off. Shawn goes for the elbow drop, but Kurt rolls out of the way. Kurt drops the straps. He sets up for the angle slam, but Shawn rolls through it with an arm drag. Kurt charges, and Shawn backdrops him out to the floor. Shawn goes to the top rope. He comes off with a crossbody to the floor. His knee caught Kurt right in the face, and we see that Kurt is bleeding from his mouth.
Yikes.
Kurt tries to German suplex Shawn off the apron. Shawn catches him with a mule kick. Shawn puts Kurt on the announce table. Then he springboards off the middle rope and hits like kind of a half moonsault. It's more of like a spinning crossbody, but it's still pretty rough landing as the table doesn't break.
It's a brutal bump, honestly.
They crawl back into the ring. Shawn hits a forearm and then he kips up. Scoop slam, elbow drop. Shawn sets up for Sweet Chin music, but Kurt catches him in the ankle lock. Shawn tries to roll through, but Kurt holds on. Shawn manages to get to the ropes. Kurt goes for the angle slam. Shawn rolls through with a sunset flip. Kurt picks his ankle, but Shawn rolls through it into a victory roll. Shawn goes for Sweet Chin music. Kurt blocks it and hits the angle slam. That only gets a 2 count.
This is about the time in the match where, like, so much stuff is happening that it's almost impossible to cheer for any of it. Because, like, you just have, like, your mouth on the floor, like, what?
Kurt goes to the top. He goes for the moonsault, but he misses. Shawn goes to the top. Kurt pops up and angle slams him off the top rope.
Jesus.
Somehow that's not the finish. Like, that had to be the finish, right?
I mean, it really should have been, especially when we get to what the finish actually is, and I'm not sure it was, like, the right choice for a match like this. So, yeah, I think that should have been it.
Kurt talks trash to Shawn, like, holds him up, and Shawn nails him with Sweet Chin music. They're both down for about a minute before Shawn manages to drape an arm over Kurt. Kurt kicks out at 2. Shawn struggles to his feet, and then Kurt just pops up and gets him in the ankle lock, like, and is just, up and screaming like nothing happened to him.
Yep.
Yeah, it just is what it is. It's not a match very heavy on psychology. Man, the spots are amazing.
I mean, it's a great time watching it. Like, it's one of those matches where you can just turn off your brain and just watch people do awesome shit for like 25 minutes. It's a lot of fun. These are two of the best wrestlers who ever lived, and they basically just decided, like, let's just create the formula for the show-stealing match where we don't really have to exert ourselves. Because this is probably like the easiest match either one of them ever wrestled at WrestleMania. Just like, let's just do a bunch of fun shit.
Finishers over and over. I mean, it's built into like kind of the modern style where for a big WrestleMania match, it's just going to be each guy trying to hit their finish over and over.
Yep. And there are good ways to do it and there are bad ways to do it. Technically, this is the bad way to do it, but they're both so good that it's still just fun to watch.
Yeah. Sean tries to kick out of the ankle lock, but he can't. Kurt grapevines the leg to trap him in the middle of the ring, and after, I swear, 5 minutes, Sean finally taps out.
I genuinely liked. I'm sure lots of people were unhappy about him being in the ankle lock for so long. I thought it was actually an interesting touch because they have the crowd so strongly that the entire time that he's struggling not to tap out, the crowd is
Yeah.
losing it for like 5 straight minutes. They never lose him.
Well, they're with
Like,
him because they're sure he's not going to tap out. But
yes, because like nobody taps out in matches of this caliber. Like usually main eventers don't tap. Like
yeah.
we're kind of
Credit to Shawn Michaels though. Like Shawn Michaels tapped at Benoit, he tapped at Jericho. Like in this era, he's very much somebody who doesn't mind putting people over.
and it doesn't hurt Shawn Michaels.
No.
Shawn Michaels is someone who knows you put on a performance like this, who do they remember at the end? They remember you. Doesn't matter if you lost.
So yeah, I mean, some mixed feelings, but still an incredible athletic accomplishment by these two guys, and definitely like one of the foundations of the modern WWE big match style. This is definitely an incredibly influential match. Um,
Yep.
Pretty sure they ran way over how much time they were supposed to use here. This had to go at least 5 minutes heavy.
Oh, it had to have been.
I think
Like,
this ended up being like 28 minutes. It was probably supposed to be like 22.
and the funny thing is, like, I'm absolutely certain that they take the time from Cena and Batista and Cena and
Oh,
Bradshaw.
for sure. Triple H is not getting his time cut.
Yeah, Triple H still gets 20 minutes. So like Cena and Bradshaw
Yeah.
probably had like a 15-minute match planned out.
Yeah,
They have to
down
cut it to
time.
11.
Yeah.
Not that I would have wanted to see that what we got for 16 minutes because it wasn't good.
Shawn Michaels matches running overtime at WrestleMania, a tradition unlike any other.
And like I've always respected the balls of it to just be like,
What are they
yeah,
going to do?
what are they fucking gonna do? It's the best match of the night, the best match you've ever seen. Kiss my ass, I'm out.
At WrestleMania 10, they literally canceled a match because the ladder match ran long.
That happened to that happened to Lance Storm at WrestleMania 18 because of the Jericho match. Like he was supposed to be on that show and they canceled his match. That was going to be his only WrestleMania match.
Next up, we've got Piper's Pit with special guest Stone Cold Steve Austin. It'll be the first time Austin and Piper have ever come face to face. Piper welcomes Austin with a slap across the face. Austin returns the slap. Piper says he likes that Austin messes with Vince, but says that Piper was causing trouble for Vince long before Austin was. And then Carlito interrupts. Piper takes a bite of Carlito's apple, spits it in his face. Carlito attacks Piper. Austin watches for a second, but then beats up Carlito, hits him with the stunner. Piper throws him out of the ring. I don't know, a little long, but it was a fun segment.
If the story of this show is future stars get put in with big stars and have their moments, if Carlito had become a big star, we would remember this moment fondly.
Yeah. Carlito did not become a big star because, I don't know, didn't really care to.
At the time, it really seemed like he was going to. He
Oh,
was
yeah.
every bit had as much potential as anybody else.
Yeah, out of this, like, the kind of next crew of guys that's like him and Shelton and Nitro, he's
Carlito
probably
had
their best
everything.
prospect, isn't he?
Oh,
Yeah.
God, yeah. He was one of the best prospects they ever had.
Yeah.
He could talk, he could work lucha style, Japanese style, he could work Southern style. He was
Super
only like 20,
athlete. Yeah.
second generation, like multiple languages, like everything you could possibly want.
And what was it? Was it just he didn't really care
didn't
that
give a
much?
Yeah, he was just there.
Never worked hard enough.
He just wanted to fuck the divas and get his paycheck. Like I
You know
can't blame
what?
him for that.
Respect.
Respect, dude. That's a great life.
Next up, inexplicably, we have a sumo challenge as the Big Show takes on Aki Bono.
Okay.
So Aki Bono is a great sumo who attained the rank of Yokozuna. retired from sumo competition in 2001. They bill him as 6'8" and 500 pounds, and he is super tall. He is like only a couple inches shorter than Big Show.
Akebono was actually famous for this because he was a Hawaiian who came into sumo culture. That's not unusual. There are a lot of Samoans and like Polynesian people who joined sumo culture. But his thing was that he was just so goddamn tall that when he would get low on you, he'd take up half the ring. So literally he'd just stay low and shove you the fuck out. Like it's just nothing you could do. He wasn't. Here's the fascinating thing about this is that he was not a pro wrestler yet when this happened.
No, he becomes one after this. He actually wrestles Brock Lesnar for the IWGP title.
Yes. He becomes a fixture in like All Japan and the Indies and stuff like that. He becomes like a spectacle. Like not quite like an Andre level thing, but just like a big ass dude who floats around, and if you need somebody for a main event, it's easy to heat him up because he's gigantic.
Yeah. I see the logic here because they're trying to expand into Japan at this point. They did. Was the SmackDown in Japan the one where JBL fought the Godzilla blow-up doll?
I don't I think that maybe it was actually. I can't remember.
But I think it was around that time. I'm pretty sure they did a SmackDown from Japan.
Yeah, they definitely
around this time. And
they were trying to expand into that. I don't know.
Heard that before.
I don't know if they thought that bringing in a non-Japanese guy to wrestle a sumo match against the Big Show was going to do it.
It sounds just culturally incompetent enough to be true.
The thing is, like, he was trained as a wrestler at this point. So he could have just had a match with the Big Show here. Though I guarantee you they would not have been able to come up with a finish that would have worked. And it's just... Also, Akebono has just come off like 3 or 4 years of doing mixed martial arts, which is how he gets into wrestling in the first place, because that's Inokiism for you.
Yeah. A lot of stalling before we actually do the match. So they've set up the sumo ring in the wrestling ring. They remove the ropes. They do like all the ceremonial stuff with the salt throw-in and whatever. And then they finally, square up and they do their sumo match. It's worked. It's not a shoot. They wrestle for about a minute before Akebono throws Big Show out of the ring.
And here's the thing, is, first of all, poor Earthquake and Yokozuna, who never got to do this, because this may have gotten over with them doing it. But, like, Big Show is a fucking joke. The second he walks out in the sumo outfit...
Oh, my God.
It's just a joke.
Did not need to see Big Show's ass cheeks.
And when he gets knocked out of the ring, he lands on the ground and spreads his legs, and you just see like a close-up of his taint, and it's not good for anyone. There's nobody on this roster right now who should be in a match like this. Maybe Rikishi could have done this. Just at least he's like the right shape for it.
Yeah.
The Big Show's just a big guy. Why he would be in a sumo wrestling match is beyond me.
Because Vince regrets so much that he didn't have Yokozuna. They let Yokozuna wear tights under his sumo gear, and he didn't make people look at those cheeks when he wrestled.
We've got to get the cheeks. Yeah.
I'd love that that's like, if you ask Vince about like things he regrets in his life, like that's one of them that would come up.
Imagine you're Vince McMahon, and your entire life is this like detailed minutia of wrestling characters. So we see it from outside and we're watching it on TV. Vince probably never sees what it looks like on TV. I guarantee you he probably never goes back and rewatches old stuff. I guarantee you
he doesn't have time to do that.
Yeah, he doesn't watch like Raw and SmackDown. He just watches whatever he sees from the monitor. How
fascinating would it be to like watch Vince watch old matches and just see what he says about them?
I guarantee you, if Vince watched old white matches, he would tear them to shreds. He'd be like,
what the fuck is he doing? That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Just to see Vince have like an honest conversation, watching an old show and just being like, well, that was stupid. That production fucked up. Kevin Dunn ruined that. Bruce fucked this up.
Oh. All right, next we get the video package for Cena versus JBL for the WWE Championship. JBL is the longest reigning WWE champion since Diesel in 1995. He's been the champion since June when he beat Eddie Guerrero for the title in a bull rope match at the Great American Bash. I mean, one of the most meteoric rises we've ever seen from anyone, as he went from being like, the APA was just not even remotely over as a tag team by 2004. Like, they're just kind of hovering around. They're in one of those throwaway tag matches at WrestleMania 20. And a month later, they've repackaged him into JBL, and he's in pay-per-view main events. What were your feelings on JBL back then, and what are your feelings now?
I hated JBL back then.
Me too.
I was a regular SmackDown viewer. I preferred SmackDown to Raw at the time. Like, Eddie Guerrero was my guy, ride or die. And when it was partially just that when he came in, his character was just basically the worst possible person that could exist, which is to say a white Republican man, and just an overt racist, and just like shat on Eddie Guerrero and then took the title and buried him. And like,
the fact that he took the title from Eddie was just so heartbreaking.
And then I understand what they were trying to do. Like, I understand Bruce Pritchard's philosophy that, like, if we put somebody with a ton of heat on top and build up that heat, the fact that we don't have any top guys who are over won't matter because we'll have that heat seeker. So people will pay to see anybody who faces him in case they might beat him. That's the way
classical school wrestling. It's not how WWE usually does business.
That's the thing. WWE is designed literally the opposite way. WWE, all the way back through into the San Martino days, has always been built around a babyface that people want to pay to see and their challenger. Yeah. That's how WWE is built. You built a gigantically strong babyface, and it doesn't fucking matter who they face. The fans will pay just to see that babyface. Both of them are reasonable ways of making money. Frankly, the WWE way has proven out to be the more successful way because they won. Like, the NWA old school heat style has definitively been proven to draw less money than the WWE way. I'm not necessarily happy about that, but that's the truth. People pay to see their favorite baby faces. That's what they pay to see. So putting Bradshaw on top for like a full fucking year, and just having him be like a chicken shit heel who accidentally backwards asses his way into winning every time. And it also happens to preside over this huge talent drain on SmackDown.
That's the biggest thing that happened is SmackDown lost all its top guys, and then they did a draft that we thought was going to replenish SmackDown's roster, and instead they got like Rene Dupree and the Dudleys.
Yeah. So basically what happens is it's just Bradshaw in 5 segments on every show, and then he's in the main events, and he's just... I can see where he could have worked in a different circumstance, but also like his matches aren't very good. Like he's old at this point for him to suddenly start wrestling like 25-minute matches.
Got a gross, saggy body.
And like I understand academically how this all makes for the ideal heel. I do. I'm not trying to bury Bruce Pritchard specifically for that, though I do hate the idea. I don't inherently hate the idea of taking a mid-carder and just elevating them suddenly and using the resentment from the crowd as heat. I think it can work. The 2 times we've really seen it, this and Jinder Mahal, it did not work. So, But they stuck with this idea for way, 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 way too long.
Yeah, but options on SmackDown were pretty limited. Who else did you have? You had Booker T. And you had Angle. Could have just put the belt back on Angle.
I mean, that's fair. It wasn't a great situation. I completely agree. And especially since you know that you're putting the belt on Cena. And so, like, your job is to create the best possible person for Cena to beat that you can.
No.
So I get that.
Yeah, that's their whole thing. I think as soon as when they put the belt on JBL, they know we're putting it on Cena at WrestleMania, so let's put a ton of heat on JBL. And then when Cena beats him, it'll be super over. Doesn't work. This match isn't over at all.
I guess potentially it could have worked, But as we said, like they've already started to strip away the aspects of Cena that we liked, and then like JBL is so far past his sell-by date at this point. His cabinet has not gotten over. Orlando Jordan and the Bashams are dead in the water.
What a horrible stable.
I'm sure somebody at some point thought that, like, hey, here's a bunch of up-and-comers.
Oh, yes.
I thought Orlando Jordan had a lot of potential. I thought that...
I agree.
I was briefly, like, the biggest shill for Orlando Jordan in the world when he went to Italy after he left WWE and became this, like, bisexual nature boy character. And it was, like, one of the greatest characters I'd ever seen in my entire life.
Kind of the forerunner to the Velveteen Dream.
It was actually, that's probably the closest character I've ever seen to it. And then he would like go into the crowd and just like shove kids on the floor and shit like that because laws in Italy are different. And it was just
very
amazing
different.
heat. And then he like had a match with the Ultimate Warrior, Warrior's comeback match. Like if you can go and dig that out of the archives, I believe it's called the Italian Wrestling Entertainment. It was Rikishi's promotion. And like go and find
Rikishi like, get the Ultimate Warrior to wrestle for him.
Yeah, Warrior versus Orlando Jordan, the most incomprehensibly great main event in the history of professional wrestling. But like here, he's just a dude.
Yeah.
And they try so hard with him. And the only notable thing he does his entire time in WWE is that match with Benoit, which you could convince
he loses in 25 seconds.
I had that GIF as my avatar briefly on Raja.
The whole match is just like, he winds up for a big punch and Benoit ducks it and German suplexes him and then puts him in the crippler crossface and he taps.
Yep. And that's how he loses the U.S. title.
And then, like, they wrestle again and Benoit beats him even faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So JBL is out first. He's got a police escort for his limo. That was a really nice touch. And then fake money with his face on it falls from the ceiling.
I can't say that they didn't have a lot of great ideas to get heat with JBL. Like, they did. They had a ton of great ideas. Except that, unfortunately, the bell had to ring.
Cena is out second. He has switched from basic thugonomics to his more famous "My Time Is Now" theme. He's also wearing a Chain Gang jersey instead of the throwback. You know, in the past he would have come out here in like Magic Johnson or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar jersey in LA. Instead, he's got some generic merchandise that they can sell.
Such a shame because
the throwback jerseys were such a good idea.
They should have just found some way to profit off of throwback jerseys, honestly.
That's the thing, is they couldn't make it. They were spending money buying him a new one every week. But that was right when the throwback jerseys had become a thing, and it was so cool back then.
That was one of the few times where they were like on the cusp of a cultural thing that was actually cool, and then they just dropped it.
Yeah.
They didn't realize what they had.
It's kind of a lukewarm reaction for Cena here. It's not the pop you'd expect, and I'm pretty sure there were some boos.
There were definitely some boos. Cena's lead into this, like I kind of alluded to it earlier, but literally the storyline is Cena is not allowed to touch Bradshaw, and Bradshaw's not allowed to touch Cena. So for like 4 weeks, they do all of these stupid ass segments where both of them are just standing in the ring together, like trying to like egg each other on to punch the other one. Like Cena like fills JBL's hat with water and puts it on his head. And then JBL gets Cena arrested in like the 17th version of the Austin arrest that we've seen since that one happened. It's heatless. It's the kind of stuff that you would see and be like, seen it, whatever, this is boring.
Yeah.
There's like no heat because Cena just is made to look like an idiot over and over again. And he starts cutting all these over serious yelling promos.
Oh. This is the thing. He hasn't done normal promos, but like he did normal promos when he first came in and they sucked, and then he started rapping. But now that he's actually gotten over by rapping, they take that away from him.
And like the thing that made him special, they take all of it away, and now he's just a guy.
Yeah.
And now he's just a guy they're pushing way too hard.
And the not touching each other thing, as we saw in AEW with Cody and MJF, it can work when done right. You know what Cena and JBL needed? A belt whipping angle.
It's amazing that Pritchard didn't come up with that, honestly. That's some old school shit even he didn't think of.
Honestly, Cena taking 10 lashes from JBL would have been an amazing angle.
I guess. I never would have thought so until Cody Rhodes proved it could be cool.
Yeah. Cena charges JBL, eats a boot in the corner, gets leveled with a shoulder block, and Cena proceeds to not have any offense for the rest of the match until his final comeback.
Here's the thing. I got to imagine that this match was laid out to be like 10 minutes of JBL heat, or like 5 minutes of JBL heat, 5 minutes of John Cena, 5 more minutes of heat, and then the comeback. But instead, since they only have 11, they just decided to do 10 minutes of heat and then a 1 minute comeback.
It's boring as shit.
Well, also, Cena is not great in the ring at this point.
No, Cena's pretty bad at this point.
And they're putting him in there with Bradshaw, who is not
much of a wrestler either.
No. Like, if Cena had Triple H,
but they had a great match at Judgment Day because it was just a crazy, bloody brawl, and that's probably what they should have done here. Like,
oh, God, yeah.
They've had weeks of build-up where they haven't been allowed to touch each other. They should just be slugging it out right off the bell.
And that match kind of revived Cena a little bit. Like, the fans love that match. Like, they pop for him huge. He's a monster in that match. It's awesome.
That was when I thought everything was going to be okay. Like, it was clear there were some issues. But, yeah, when that match was so great, I was like, okay, he can deliver his big match. And, like, he's over. They can do this brawling, hardcore style with him. And that's going to be his thing. And it does not go that direction.
They should have just made him, like, an actual brawler. Like, just a fucking Bruiser Brody. But, like, that's not what they want their top guy to be. So instead, he just wrestled the most. Yeah, instead they just wrestle the most boring style of all time and call it ground and pound.
Oh yeah. I've never seen Cena ground or pound anyone.
Well, I'm sure there's a tape of him and Mickey James out there somewhere.
Stop. Will you stop? Cena finally makes his comeback. The crowd has been dead silent for 10 minutes at this point. Backdrop, shoulder tackle, hip toss, Blue Thunder Bomb, and you really start to hear heat. Bad match, and now he's just running through the same, like, it's one thing to do the same moves in every match, but to do them in the same order starts to grind on people.
Yeah, Bret Hart's 5 moves of doom was where that phrase comes from, because he'd find a way to work the same 5 moves into every match, but he'd tell a different story with it frequently. John Cena would literally be like, oh, it's my turn to start doing stuff? Cool. This one, done.
Cena ducks the clothesline from hell, hits the FU, and gets the pin. Pretty good pop for the title change, as you'd expect, but man, that was a bad match.
People wanted Cena to win. They just weren't happy with what he was doing, and they never learned from that. They just kept pushing through. Eventually, they got through to the other side, but goddamn, there was no reason to think that they would.
Next, they show highlights of the Hall of Fame ceremony, which was on TV the previous night. Inductees were Hulk Hogan, inducted by Sylvester Stallone, Roddy Piper by Ric Flair, Bob Orton by Randy Orton, Jimmy Hart by Jerry Lawler, Paul Orndorff by Bobby Heenan, Nikolai Volkov by Jim Ross, and Iron Sheik by Sergeant Slaughter. Kind of a WrestleMania 1 theme to that. You've got most of the WrestleMania 1 main event, and then Hart and Sheik and Volkov were all on that show.
Do you feel like deep down Roddy Piper went to his grave bitter that he had to share with Hulk Hogan
how is Piper not a headliner? That's crazy.
It is crazy. And like Hogan, it's so funny too because everyone is so emotional in their speeches on this one. Everyone's just like, God damn, I love the wrestling business so much. It's so great to have this honor. It's amazing. Thank you so much. And then Hogan gets up there and just kind of cuts a promo and leaves. Yeah. Like it doesn't mean shit to Hulk Hogan.
Well, got that paycheck, brother.
Yep. Thanks for the paycheck, brother. Let me know when you make the next action figures going back to Florida.
Got myself a steak dinner and nice Hall of Fame ring and think I'm going to get out of here now. Hope
Hits
they're
up
still serving
RVD.
room service at the hotel.
I got Brutus back at the hotel, keeping my coffee warm.
Yeah, coffee. Mean Gene introduces the Hall of Fame inductees, and then they do the video package for the main event. It's what the world has come to see. Triple H defend the World Heavyweight Championship against the Animal Batista. Triple H is out first. He's played to the ring by Motorhead. Okay. What is going on with Triple H's facial hair at this point? He's got the Harley Race button chops.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me paint you a word picture. We pan over to Motorhead, which is just Lemmy and a microphone stand that for some reason is like 11 feet in the air, and he's like pointed his head straight up to sing into it. And just a bunch of like other guys just like kind of off to the side. And the music starts, and Lemmy, this is that famous time that Lemmy obviously doesn't know the words to the song that he wrote.
That time? He never knew the words.
I know, but this is the famous time where he's like, it's all about the game, and the game's playing in the game. And he's just like, he's so clearly fucking wasted out of his goddamn mind.
Yeah, he's been drinking for about 8 hours at this point, I would suspect.
He's not even so much singing, it's just mumbling like, it's all about the game, and the game's gonna game, and we're gonna get the game and play the game. And then Triple H rises up from under the stage, and what was clearly supposed to be like this heroic, awesome moment, where like at the apex of his favorite band playing his song, and it's this awesome, amazing metal moment, and he rises up like a conquering warrior. But the moment where the spotlight hits him, and just like accentuates his love handles, and like he's got his like Harley Race, like you said.
Man,
if you've never seen this facial hair,
that is an arrogant mustache.
It's a mustache that feeds into a chin strap sideburn that goes all the way up to the ears.
What is the most heelish? If you were going to rank the Triple H facial hairs, is this more heelish than clean shaven Triple H?
Oh.
To me, clean shaven Triple H is probably the biggest dickhead, but this is second.
Clean shaven Triple H always looks like...
He also looks like 50.
Yeah, just like a trust fund dickhead to me. But this is a close second, because this is just, I can do whatever I want. Who gives a shit? I'm in charge, whatever.
I guess his most babyface look is the current one with the bald head and the big beard.
You mean Daddy Triple H? Yeah, that works real nice for everyone.
Leather Daddy Triple H.
Yeah, that's working just fine.
And like normal beard Triple H, I think is a solid enough compromise.
I guess since we never got to see like, what's that one? It's like Soul Patch Triple H. Since we never got to see Soul Patch Triple H, I can't really definitively say that this is the worst it could possibly be, but it's up there.
He just looks disgusting. I mean, as we pointed out, he's grown his hair out, and it's really just like, what's the term? He's not wetting it down as much.
So it's kind of like, it's got all this puffiness to it.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of...
It's a weird color because his hair gets blonder the more he grows it out.
It's just a bad, gross look. And like
he doesn't really have his physique at this point. He's kind of puffy.
Though he has slimmed down from the summer, where he obviously couldn't do any cardio because he was all fucked up.
Yeah.
So like he slimmed down a little bit. He's in much better shape than he was during like the Goldberg stuff. But even so, like he's not the Triple H you remember. And so he comes out and he does all of his stuff, and it's just kind of funny. And then Batista's music hits.
My God, he looks so amazing.
Yeah, the crowd explodes, and his music sucks. This is not I Walk Alone. Like this is like mid-card heel music.
Yeah.
So it's like pretty good, but like he comes out and the fans do not care. He comes out looking like a mountain of a man.
Sadly, does not have the machine gun entrance yet.
Yeah, he goes to do the machine gun, and I get all ready for it, and there's no pyro, and I'm like, wow, he just looks like an idiot.
I think he gets that after WrestleMania. That was a brilliant addition to the entrance.
Yeah, he looks like a huge dork doing it with no pyro, but with the pyro, it's the coolest entrance ever.
Yeah, he's looking sweet in his white trunks.
God, he started wearing the white trunks at New Year's Revolution, and I remember him coming out in them, and I was just like, "Yep, that's a main eventer." I don't know what it is about the white trunks, but he's there.
Triple H sets up for the pedigree early, but Batista slips out and press slams him. Always impressive when somebody press slams Triple H. He's a really big guy to be doing that too.
People forget that Triple H is like 6'4", 6'5", like 250 pounds. Like he's not a small man.
No, not a small guy at all. He had a brilliant feud with Big Show. I guess it was the year after this where Big Show would just throw him around.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. But like I'm in my rewatch of Raw and SmackDown. I'm just getting past where he was feuding with Steiner, and Steiner looks like a little kid next to Triple H. Like a lot of people did. Taz looked like literally a 9-year-old boy next to Triple H.
Batista gets distracted by Flair on the floor. That allows Triple H to run him into the steps. Triple H works on Batista's back for the next couple minutes. There's a brief comeback, but Triple H shuts it down with a hangman. Triple H goes for the pedigree again, but Batista back drops out. Triple H hits the face buster to keep control of the match. He goes to the top, he comes off, but Batista catches him with a clothesline. Triple H stumbles into the corner, Batista charges him, and Triple H gets his foot up. They go to the floor where Triple H throws Batista into the steps. Batista counters and catapults Helmsley into the post, and we get our unnecessary Triple H blade job.
And while it is just as unnecessary, really, as all the other Triple H blade jobs, I do feel like it adds something to this match. That wasn't probably necessary, but just it makes
how battered and bloody he is at the end of this. He's just thoroughly defeated at the end of this.
By the end of this match, we'll get to a point where Batista just looks at him and it's just like, look at you now, as he's just like bloody and fucked up in the corner. And then Triple H just like slowly slinks out of the ring, just a defeated man. Yeah, that image alone crystallizes Batista. So I think that's good.
Batista hits a running power slam. They go to the floor where the ref gets bumped as he's taking a chair away from Triple H. Flair comes into the ring with the title belt, and Batista hits him with a spine buster. Triple H gets the belt, hits Batista with it. Referee recovers to make a very close 2 count. That was exactly the kind of finish Triple H would win on all the time in this era, so that's a very good tease.
The good thing about it, though, is that like the fans don't bite on it. The fans know Batista is winning this match.
Yeah.
They are not fooled. They are just biding their time, waiting for their moment.
Spinebuster from Batista. He sets up for the Batista bomb. Triple H hits him with a low blow. Triple H goes for the pedigree again, but Batista blocks it. He lifts him up for a spinebuster, but he sort of loses his grip, so instead he falls backwards. What's this move called?
This specific version is called the Emerald Flosion. Though you're supposed to drop them directly on their neck. Luckily, he doesn't do that.
Yeah. Batista hits the Batista bomb for the pin. Very good match. One of probably Triple H's best, carry job. Batista's not there to work a 20-minute WrestleMania main event, and Triple H got him through a good match.
If you're one of our weekly listeners, I want you to remember back to all the times that we said that Triple H was trying to be Ric Flair, that he was trying to summon the essence of Ric Flair. And know that in all of his career that he tried to do that, this is the one and only time he accomplished it. This is every inch Ric Flair versus Lex Luger.
Yeah.
Like, you're taking a guy with some flaws who's not the best wrestler in the world, and you're working around him, and you're making him look like a god. And that's exactly what happens here. This match is a miracle.
And really the whole storyline was Ric Flair and Lex Luger. Like, I can guarantee you that was the inspiration for this, that Triple H and Flair were just talking about it. What if we tried to make Batista the same way you made Luger?
And the genius of this, the genius of Batista as a character, is that he's Lex Luger with a brain. He's Sting, but he's not gullible. They took this like mountain of meat muscle and like this trope character that's always an idiot but dangerous, and they taught him everything they knew. The two smartest men in the history of the business. And now they've accidentally created an indestructible force.
Yeah.
A
It's
guy
like
smarter than them and bigger and badder than them.
it's like the mob boss's bodyguard rode with him all the time while he was making his collections and learned all the wisdom from him. And then he took over as the boss. In the same way, Triple H was the driver for the Clique, and he absorbed all their knowledge. And now, when they left, he became the top guy. He's accidentally created like the one thing that could surpass him, someone who's an even bigger, better physical specimen and has all his wisdom.
That's the genius of this, is that Batista doesn't have any of the flaws that characters like him usually have. He almost becomes too unbeatable. Because, like, how the fuck are you supposed to beat him now? He's the smartest, biggest, baddest man in the company. Who beats him, honestly? And that's kind of where they settle in. That becomes his biggest problem on SmackDown, is that you can't beat him.
No.
The only way you get
No.
the belt off him is when he gets hurt.
Yeah, he beats himself because he constantly gets injured. But yeah, and that's what he runs into on SmackDown is he flips over to SmackDown. There's just no opponents for him. Like, who does he work with? JBL and then Eddie, but unfortunately Eddie dies.
Yeah. And
Before
then
that program can really get going.
every time he comes back from being hurt, like he has to like bury half of the undercard in order to heat back up. And it's like, all right, well that sucks.
Yeah. Fortunately stumbles into the Undertaker feud, which really revives his career.
Undertaker's reviving a lot of careers.
Yeah. Batista celebrates with the title to end the show. Fireworks go off. Perfectly done moment. Absolutely feels like they've crowned their new top star.
It's so funny how much Cena seems like an afterthought. It's such a depiction of his future at WrestleManias, where he just never gets that moment. Until The Rock comes along and gives it to him.
Yeah, John Cena has a oddly checkered history at WrestleMania, which we'll review as we get further into this. But I mean, how does it feel? This feels like the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. Like I don't know if this is the beginning of what I would call the Cena era, or maybe it's the next year at WrestleMania when he beats Triple H that he's like 100% affirmed as the top guy. But this definitely feels like, the end of an era, the beginning of a new one.
This felt like what WrestleMania 18 should have been. Like 17 is like the celebration of the old era, and now it's time to bring in the new one. But like they had like 3 years where they just kept fucking that up and they couldn't get it right and everything was a mess. Like this feels like we finally did it.
Yeah, at 19 they made they crowned Brock Lesnar as their top guy. The problem is he left the next year. And at 20 they made Benoit and Guerrero, but those weren't long-term solutions. So yeah. Now it's like they bought time and they found their guys and they've made them, and the future could not be brighter.
Literally like scoreboard. On this show, they're basically showing that in the future we will have Mysterio, Edge, Benjamin, Orton. We're gonna have
Batista,
Carlito. Here are our guys. Here they are. Yeah. They're awesome.
We've got our two top baby faces. We've got our two top heels. We've got Carlito, our entertaining character heel. We've got Mysterio, our little guy, super worker who can have great matches. Looks like they're set for the next 5 years. And over the course of the next year, all of this will fall apart.
The only things that will still be standing by the time we come back around are Edge and Cena. Everything else is dead in the water.
Yeah, this is a great WrestleMania, like an underrated one, I think. But the good times are over after this. We have some very bumpy water ahead.
Oh, how long till we get to 24?
Yeah, next
I've
time.
had it too good for too long, Steve. We did all of those WrestleManias that sucked so bad, and now we're in the good times, and I'm not ready to go back, man.
We suffered through. Those early WrestleManias are rough. There's a couple
some of the worst
shows
ever aired.
But man, they're rough. And now we hit this goal. And then we hit another wall with 11 and 12 and 13. And now, we hit the golden age with 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 22 is a nightmare.
22 is a nightmare. 23 is trash. 24 is a miracle.
It's a mirage. Yeah, and it's another mirage. You think you think like things are about to get better, and they don't. They get
And then
really bad after
25, and then
that.
yeah, 25 through 30 are the worst shows imaginable. Uh,
It's hard to say what happened. I think at a certain point, WrestleMania just got unmanageably big. Like that's definitely the era we're in now, where it's just like it's become too much. They have too many guys. They're trying to book too many matches. There's no focus to the shows.
and they're creating shows that feel good in the moment, but when we look back on them later, they'll just feel empty
Yeah, what
because
did we actually achieve?
they're just meant to be viral. Basically, they're just trying to crank out like viral content for the moment, just to
Yeah.
get eyes on the business and bring money in. But
In a
like they're
lot of
not.
ways, this feels like the last kind of complete WrestleMania.
It really does.
This feels like the last one that doesn't just exist in its moment.
It's
Ooh,
a
I'd
wonderful
never put that
standalone.
together, but yeah, after this, they start really getting into like it's just moments. Like it's not built to, and there's nothing to come after it. It's just for one night, we're gonna do whatever the coolest thing we can is without a real story behind it.
Yikes.
Yeah. So yeah, next time we talk about how this company wasted the great promise of this generation. All that and more next time on the Lawcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again.